The campfires of Winterfell burned low beneath the watchful eyes of the first keep, giving up coils of smoke that drifted into a northern sky bright with frozen stars. Jon Snow lingered beside the wall of the world's edge, where the godswood met the outer battlements, Ghost at his heels. Summer's lingering warmth had fled the castle days ago, yet sweat darkened the collar of Jon's black wool tunic. What he cradled in his hands, cracked leather, brittle parchment, and the wax seal of House Stark, weighed more than Valyrian steel. The letter had no greeting, no flourish. Only Ned Stark's austere script, steady even at the brink of death. "Forgive me, Jon. I swore an oath to your mother and prayed the lie would protect you. You are Aegon of House Targaryen, born in love, not war, to Rhaegar and my sister Lyanna. The throne is yours by right. Make of that truth what you will. I have failed you only in silence." Ice-chilled wind stirred the paper. Jon's knuckles whitened. He read the words again, slower, as though repetition might dull the blade now buried in his chest. Across the yard, Robb directed the stable hands to load fresh oats, unaware his brother's soul was unraveling nearby. Bran's laughter carried from the ramparts where he and Rickon practiced hawking at twilight crows. All of Winterfell breathed and bustled, each motion threaded into place by years of habit. Yet for Jon, time had cracked. He closed the letter. Beneath him, Ghost rumbled, sensing a tremor that ran deeper than mere cold. Jon's mind spun backward. Dusty corridors where Micken's forge hissed, the smell of hot iron and oil. A stubborn boy asking the armorer why his cloak was always the bastard's gray. He pictured Ned's steady hand closing over his shoulder the night they spoke of the wall. How the Lord's voice had wavered, promising truth, "The next time we meet." Now the promise sat within Jon's palm, ink dried in a dead man's sorrow. Footsteps approached. Jon tucked the parchment beneath his cloak, just as Maester Luwin emerged, lantern swinging. "You missed the evening meal," the Maester said. "Must I remind you winter is coming for your stomach as surely as it is for the realm?" Jon managed to nod. "I wasn't hungry." "Is that the truth?" Luwin peered at Ghost, then at Jon's shadowed eyes. "Lord Robb will want you rested. He rides at dawn to collect the harvest tithe from White Harbor." Jon glanced south to the dark beyond Winterfell's walls, imagining distant King's Landing. Red Keep towers slick with summer rain. Inside those stones, Robert Baratheon, friend to Ned, slayer of Rhaegar, wore a heavy crown of stag antlers. Jon saw it now, rimmed in Jon's own mother's blood. Some part of him had always dreamed of the father he never knew. Another part had envied his trueborn siblings, their place in the world. Yet never had he coveted a throne. Until these words. "Your throne. I'll ride with him," Jon murmured without thinking. "I need the miles to clear my head." Luwin's voice softened. "Grief takes many roads, but wherever you travel, carry your father's virtues with you." He squeezed Jon's forearm and turned away, lantern glow receding toward the great hall. Jon exhaled when the light disappeared. "Ghost," he whispered. The direwolf's red eyes blazed. "We leave at dawn too, but not for White Harbor." High sunrise burnished the King's Road with molten gold. Robb's host marched east. Jon chose the southern fork alone, cloaked in a plain traveler's mantle. No banners snapped in the breeze, no heralds called his name. At the edge of the Wolf's Wood he reined in, listening. Wind rustled birch leaves like sighing silk. Somewhere, a stag crashed through underbrush, startled by Ghost's scent. Jon's childhood lessons fluttered up. "If ever you must choose, pick the path that frightens you, for it will be the one with meaning." He tightened the strap that secured Longclaw to his back. The Valyrian blade felt different now, as though the ripples in its dark steel flickered with dragon fire. He would not be Ned Stark's bastard wielding a family heirloom. He would be Aegon Targaryen claiming the sword his grandfather never forged. Southward they rode. Day gave way to dusk. At Molestown, Jon bought fresh provisions and slept beneath an overturned skiff. Ghost curled at his feet. Dreams came, Lyanna's face pallid under a canopy of blue winter roses, whispering, "Promise me, Jon," though the promise itself shifted like smoke. He woke before dawn, heart hammering at a memory that was not his. By the third day, Winterfell's distant spires were ghosts in the mist behind him. Villages dotted the road. Flint Hill, Queen's Crown, the ruins of the holdfast where Bran had once hidden from wildlings. Jon passed them all, words of Ned's letter beating against his ribs like caged ravens. At midday he crossed the last river. A patrol of Karstark men eyed his cloak until they saw the wolf at his heels. They saluted in silence, mistaking him for a scout on Stark business. He wondered how long such mistaken loyalties would keep him alive. Night fell upon the rolling downs beyond the neck. Jon made a small camp in a hollow blanketed by reeds. Fireflies stitched pinpricks of green light across the still water. He coaxed a flame from tinder, fed it sparingly. Ghost prowled the margins, ears twitching. Jon laid out the parchment once more. The ink reflected ember light like tiny scales of black glass. "The words are only the beginning," he told the wolf. "The realm has usurped my name, killed my father, and crowned the man who took our birthright." Jon swallowed, tasting ash. If Robert bends the knee, perhaps a peace can live. If he stands, Ghost's growl cut him off. Across the marsh someone moved, stepping lightly through cattails. Jon drew Longclaw. Moonlight rippled along its ripples. A lithe figure in leather breeches and dark green cloak emerged, hands raised. "No need for steel," said a low voice, feminine and cool. "I followed you since you crossed the white knife. Your wolf didn't object, but perhaps you will." "Damn?" The stranger stepped closer. Hair black as a raven's wing framed a sharp chin. A silver brooch, shaped like a dragon, coiled at her throat. Jon's breath caught. "Ashara Dane is dead," he whispered. "Who are you?" She smiled. "My name is Miria Sand. Or would you prefer the alias you were born to? Prince Doktal." Jon's grip tightened. "I know no princes. Nor kings, then. You ride toward one, unless your horse misleads." She knelt beside the fire, uninvited, and produced a sealed scroll from her satchel. "Prince Doran of Dorne bids you read this." He would have sent Maester Caliot, but truth flies faster on a bastard's wings. "Bah." Jon glanced at the wax seal. A sun and spear half broken. He slid a finger beneath, hesitated, then opened it. The letter inside bore a single line of flowing Dornish script. "The dragon has 2 heads. We will stand with the third." Miria watched him. "Dorne remembers Elia and her children, but we also remember prophecy. The prince would see the realm set right, with fire or with justice." Jon folded the parchment. "Dorne marched beneath Rhaegar once and bled for it. Yet, here I am, riding north to follow his heir. Are you worthy of that blood, Snow?" Jon thought of Ned's letter, of Lyanna's screams at the Tower of Joy, of Robb's easy laughter, and Arya's fierce hugs. He thought of Robert's booming tales of battle over roasted boar, of the bitterness that wormed through the king's heart each time he mentioned dragons. "I don't know," Jon breathed, "but I will find out before the city walls rise before me." Miria nodded. "Then my spear is yours." She glanced up as Ghost padded into the clearing, muzzle slick with marsh water. The dire wolf sniffed a Dornish woman once, circled twice, and settled between them, as though bridging something unseen. Jon fed the fire anew. Sparks spiraled skyward, bursts of light in the breathless dark. Perhaps, he mused, this was how dragons began. A small bright ember refusing to die. King's Landing lay 400 leagues ahead. Its streets thrummed with merchants and thieves, the stink of tanneries, the salt of Blackwater Bay. Yet as Jon's party grew, 2 Karstark outriders, a Septon who joined after reading Ned's letter aloud and deeming it righteous truth, and now Miria Sand. Each mile seemed less a journey and more a reckoning. At Maidenpool they found a market day in full tilt. Pipers trilled, barters shouted. Hogs squealed beneath burlap nets. Jon walked the stalls hooded, Ghost pacing close behind. Rumors buzzed. Robert Baratheon plagued by gout, the Hand planning a tourney, the Reach suffering a late blight. No word of Targaryens, no whispered dragons. In a tavern with peeling green shutters, they met Samwell Tarly, plump in Maester's gray, traveling to Old Town for his chain. Sam recognized Jon's voice before his face. They embraced. Surprised tears shining in Sam's eyes. "You look different," Sam said, studying the prince-to-be. Jon shook his head. "Perhaps I finally look like myself." Sam took in Ghost, the Dornish woman, the parchment tucked beneath Jon's belt. He asked no questions, only said, "Where you go, my counsel goes too. If you'll have me." Jon clasped his arm. "I'd have no other." That night wind rattled the shutters. Jon lay awake while rain drummed the roof. He pictured the Iron Throne. Cold blades tempered by fire, forged in fear. Could he sit upon that mass of sharp promise without cutting away the boy raised in Winterfell? Could he rule without Ned's sure honor? Miria's voice drifted through the dark. "You ponder as loudly as you ride," she whispered across the low flames. "Sleep. Tomorrow brings storms." Jon smiled at the ceiling. Tomorrow always does. The storms arrived sooner than dawn. A raven beat against the tavern's shutter, black wings soaked. Jon's gloved hands trembled as he untied the message from its leg. The wax seal bore a crowned stag. "To Eddard's bastard at Maidenpool." It began in a scrawl both careless and furious. "Ride to King's Landing with all haste. Your presence is commanded at the Red Keep. Come beneath the king's peace and no harm will befall you. Refuse and be named traitor." It was unsigned, yet Jon could taste the wine on Robert's breath between each blot of ink. The message might have been invitation or noose, perhaps both. Jon flattened the parchment on the table. Ghost sniffed the edges and huffed. Around them the tavern keepers feigned sleep. Sam sat rigid, white as milk, while Miria examined the writing by the flicker of lantern light. "He means to cage you," she said. "Or to test me," Jon replied. He looked toward the sodden road, lit by spear-slim rays of dawn. "Either path ends in the throne room." Sam swallowed. "Will he honor guest right? Lord Robert loves you as a nephew." Robert loved Rhaegar's songs once before he learned they belonged to a dragon. Jon folded the paper, slid it into the fire. It curled to black. "I will ride to him, but not alone, and not silent." Then he fetched Ned's letter, weighed it in his palm. The realm deserves to read these words aloud, to weigh them as the gods will judge. 3 days hard riding carried them across the Blackwater rush, where the river swirled wide and brown. On a bluff overlooking the fairy town of Stonehelm, Jon called his companions into council. The wind howled, thrashing ghostgrass against their boots. "We near King's Landing," he said. "If the Baratheon lion sleeps uneasy, we must wake every conscience before his roar drowns us." Miria traced a map upon the ground with her dagger. "The gold cloaks guard the city gates. But the people, they hear whispers before banners." Sam adjusted his spectacles. "The great sept of Baelor hosts a mummers' festival on the morrow. Thousands will crowd the square. A scroll read from the sept steps travels faster than lightning." Jon met their eyes, one by one. "Then we will give them truth." That evening, they camped on the riverbank. Jon copied Ned's letter in his own hand, adding only the date and his seal. A direwolf and a dragon entwined. He wrote another to Robb, begging forgiveness for leaving without farewell, and warning his brother to guard the North's borders. When the letters were folded and sealed, he placed them inside Sam's leather satchel. "You will carry these into the sept," Jon told him. "Read them before the mother's statue, in sight of all." Sam blanched. "I am no orator." "You are my friend," Jon said. "That is higher office than any herald." Miria clasped Sam's shoulder. "I'll stand with you," spear bared. Ghost huffed approval, tail beating the ground. Jon watched the river's slow churn under moonlight. He imagined Robert's face when the words reached the Iron Throne. Shock. Anger. Perhaps grief. But Robert would feel something else too. Something Jon could not name yet feared. Might the king bend the knee to a boy he once bounced upon that knee? Or would the stag lower its antlers, demanding blood? Jon inhaled the scent of wet earth and river salt. "Bend or burn," the parchment declared, though Jon himself had never written those words aloud. They rose unbidden from some fiery place inside him, a place shaped neither by Stark honor nor Targaryen madness, but by the terrible union of both. "I will not be a butcher," he whispered to the night, "but I will not be a bastard either." Morning's tide glimmered pewter beneath low storm clouds as they approached King's Landing. The city walls loomed, mottled by age, banners of gold and crimson snapping overhead. Spices and sewage thickened the air. Distant bells rang matins in the sept high above. At the gate of the gods, a dozen gold cloaks barred their path. Their captain stepped forward, visor lifted. "State your names." His gaze paused on Ghost, then on Longclaw's hilt. "Jon Snow," Jon answered, voice steady. "Scout for House Stark." The captain's brows shot up. "You're expected," he signaled. The portcullis rattled open. Miria raised a brow but said nothing. Sam tugged his maester's chain. It clinked like distant thunder. Together they entered the capital, swallowed by clamor and color. Street criers hawked sweet wine from dornish vines. Bakers fanned steam from honey cakes. Children dashed through puddles, cheering. Life, indifferent to royal quarrels, marched on. In the shadow of the great sept of Beeler, crowds milled around silk-draped stages where jugglers tossed flaming batons. Sam parted from Jon, clutching the scroll case to his chest. Miria and the two Karstark men shadowed him, forming a silent bulwark. Jon pushed deeper toward the Red Keep, Ghost padding glaive silent alongside. Soldiers escorted him past the mud gate, up twisting streets so narrow even sunbeams arrived thin and ragged. At the base of Aegon's high hill, the soldiers halted. "Your wolf stays," one said. Jon's stare hardened. "The wolf remains." Ghost bared fangs wider than daggers. The guard stepped back. "As you will, sir." They ascended steps carved by dragons long vanished. Jon's lungs burned from the climb, yet his heart thrummed fiercer. Within the throne room, great crimson drapes blotted every window. Torches flared, staining stone with wavering gold. At the chamber's end, the Iron Throne squatted like a brooding beast, its shadows swallowing half the days. Robert Baratheon sat not upon it but below, in a heavy oak chair lined with ermine. His beard had grayed since last they met, though his eyes held the old wildfire spark. Beside him stood Lord Renly, lean and scented, and Sir Barristan Selmy, armor polished bright. Cersei lounged to Robert's right, green eyes narrowed to glittering slits. Jon advanced until guards crossed spears. He knelt halfway down the hall, no closer. Ghost settled beside him, hackles raised. The hall rustled, a living hush. Robert's voice thundered. "Rise, boy." Jon stood. "Eddard's cub, I summoned you on honor, yet you bring a beast to the king's hall." Robert's tone softened. "Still, wolves are family to Starks, eh? And we are kin of a sort." Jon's chest tightened. "My lord." "Not, my lord." Robert shifted, groaning as if his memories pained him more than his gout. "Call me uncle, as you did at Winterfell." Jon took a breath. The torches hissed. "Uncle, I come with truth heavier than crowns. My father left me a letter." Cersei arched a brow. Renly's smile faltered. Sir Barristan's gaze sharpened. "Lord Eddard wrote many letters," Robert said. "Got half of them stuck in Maester Pycelle's craw. What makes yours so dire?" Jon reached for the parchment. The guards tensed. He unfolded it slowly, voice echoing off splintered swords as he began to read. "Forgive me, Jon." Across King's Landing, Sam eased onto the sept steps, scroll in hand. Thousands gathered, drawn by the hush that fell when the fat maester cleared his throat. Miria stood watch, spearhead glinting. Jon's voice and Sam's rose together, carried on different winds, both speaking Ned Stark's confession to ears that strained for scandal. In the throne room, Robert's face drained of blood. Torch shadows danced like traitors along the walls. Blades above the Iron Throne seemed to lean closer, hungry. When the final word left Jon's lips, silence cracked. Robert's fist slammed the armrest. "Lies." Jon held the parchment high. "The handwriting is your friend's, the seal his own. Sworn men of the Vale witnessed the birth. The gods themselves bore it." Cersei's lips curled. "A dragon's bastard speaks of gods. How quaint." Ser Barristan stepped forward. "Your Grace, I served with Lord Went at Harrenhal. I know the hand that forged this script. It is Eddard Stark's." Robert surged to his feet, breath ragged. "Then Ned was bewitched, or worse. Rhaegar raped Lyanna and this sniveling Burr." "Prince," Jon finished, the word ringing like steel on anvil. "Son.a. Heir. Dain." A rumble rose beyond the windows, distant voices swelling around the sept. The realm was hearing the same truth in unison. Robert's eyes flicked toward the noise, wild and afraid. Jon stepped closer, ghost matching his stride. "I do not come for vengeance, uncle. Only for what is mine. My name, my father's honor, and the justice my mother never knew. Bend the knee, and the realm may yet see summer. Stand against me, and winter will arrive on wings of fire." Torches cracked. Sweat rolled down Renly's cheek. Cersei's tongue wet her lips like a serpent scenting blood. Robert's shoulders heaved. Great stag he might be, but his heart beat in a failing cage. He looked upon Jon, a young man shaped by northern frost yet burning with dragon heat, and remembered Rhaegar on the trident, shining like dawn. Robert closed his eyes. "I loved your mother," he whispered, voice broken. "I killed 1,000 men for love left unanswered. And now her son stands before me, wearing my brother's face." Jon's fingers curled into fists. He knew pity would sway nothing. Only truth. "You killed Rhaegar," Jon said softly. "But not love. You set a throne fashioned from fear, and fear is brittle. I will forge another thing, tempered in loss, sharpened by honor." "Bah!" Robert opened his eyes. Tears glimmered unshed. With halting motion he knelt, one knee first, then the other. Before the boy he might have called nephew or enemy. Gasps rippled across the hall like pebbles tossed in still water. Cersei's mouth opened in silent outrage. Renly took a single step back, as though the floor turned molten. Robert bowed his head. "Aegon Targaryen, first of your name, true-born son of Lyanna and Rhaegar, rightful heir to the Iron Throne, will you spare a tired old king his life, and grant mercy to the realm?" Jon swallowed. Every childhood lesson from Maester Luwin, every stern word from Eddard Stark, gleamed inside him like lanterns across dark water. Mercy tempered justice. Justice tempered mercy. "I will spare Robert Baratheon," he said, "but the crown spares no man. Stand, and swear fealty not to the throne alone, but to the people who bleed for it." Robert lifted his gaze. In his eyes flickered something like relief beneath sorrow. He rose unsteadily and drew his sword, heavy, ornate, edged with lion's gold, then turned it hilt first toward Jon. A hush deeper than prayer cloaked the hall. Jon took the blade. Its weight pressed years upon his arms. Beyond the Sept's marble pillars, Sam finished reading. Silence engulfed the square. Then a single voice cried, "Long live Aegon Targaryen!" Another shouted. Soon thousands roared, a rising tide that reached the Red Keep, rattling stained glass. Jon stood before the Iron Throne, Robert's sword across his palms, Ghost at his heels and the roar of the city in his ears. His path had only begun. Winter storms and dragonfire alike awaited beyond this moment. Yet as the first chant of Dragonwolf, Dragonwolf, echoed from the walls, Jon felt the fracture inside him begin to mend. Not fully, but enough to breathe. The boy named Snow bowed his head. The prince named Aegon closed his eyes. And somewhere high above, ravens wheeled across a sky bruised purple by twilight, cawing the only prophecy they had ever known. Change, change, change. Key. The storm settled over King's Landing like a brooding leviathan. Clouds bruised purple and green, with unseen lightning. The air ripe with ozone, and the coppery tang of high emotion. Within the Red Keep's stone intestines, torches flickered under restless drafts, as though every flame had its own anxious heartbeat, matching the pulse that hammered in Jon's throat. He still felt the bite of Robert's heavy sword across his palms, an odd sensation that lingered even once he'd returned the weapon to its scabbard, as though the steel had imprinted itself into his flesh. The hall had emptied slowly, nobles shuffling out in stunned clusters, their whispers weaving a living tapestry of disbelief, calculation, and dawning possibility. Jon waited until the last echo of clinking armor faded before he allowed himself a breath. Ghost pressed close, muzzle to his knee, maintaining that silent, lupine vigilance that seemed both protective and possessive. Robert had left flanked by Ser Barristan and two Kingsguard brothers, whose white cloaks trailed like the wings of anxious swans. Yet in the king's hunched shoulders, Jon read something that felt like the aftermath of defeat and the reluctant relief of surrender all at once. He expected Cersei's fury to descend like wildfire, but she had swept from the throne room with venomous dignity, Renly trailing in her wake, eyes wide and wary. Only Varys remained, materializing from shadows near the pillar by the twin staircases, hands clasped in that habitual, unthreatening pose. The spider's smile curved faint and knowing, as if proof of dragon blood were merely another thread to add to his web. "My prince," Varys murmured, weightless words floating on the hush. "Or may I say, your grace? It appears the realm revises its forms of address faster than any mummer could memorize." Jon regarded him, uncertain if he should take offense or laugh. He did neither. The moment felt too fragile for either. "I am still Jon," he said. The name balanced on his tongue like a step between cliffs, one foot on the life he had known, the other hovering over a chasm of fire-eyed destiny. Varys inclined his head. "Names evolve, but character endures. Or so we all hope. Should you find yourself in need of quiet knowledge, remember there are little birds who cherish song more than coin." Jon's gaze sharpened. "And do your birds sing for loyalty or for fear?" "A bit of each, as is often true of songbirds," Varys replied. "Yet they sing sweetest when guided by hope. Hope is a rarer currency than gold within these walls." The Master of Whisperers drifted away like a pale petal on a dark tide, leaving Jon with the taste of unasked questions. He turned toward the great doors, only to find Ser Barristan striding back in, helm beneath one arm, every line of his face etched with gravitas. "You're... Jon," the old knight corrected himself with a blink. "The king asks that you join him in the solar. He is... unsettled." Jon nodded. "I think we all are." He spared Ghost a glance. "Will the wolf be permitted?" Ser Barristan's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "The beast seems better intentioned than many courtiers. I shall not bar him." Menci. They traversed corridors lined with crimson carpets and tapestries depicting Targaryen triumphs half-singed by rebellion's torches. Jon's boots struck flagstones once trod by Aegon the Conqueror, Visenya, Rhaenys, names that had once been legend, now blood. Each step resonated like a drumbeat foretelling change. At a heavy cedar door Ser Barristan lifted a mailed fist and knocked thrice. A muffled bellow answered. The knight pushed the door open and gestured Jon inside. Robert Baratheon stood before a long window overlooking the Blackwater, a flagon clutched in one hand, his shoulders dark silhouettes against the dull sky. Candle stubs burned low on a desk cluttered with maps, opened ledgers, and platter scraps. The sweet, heavy scent of Dornish red wine hung over everything. Robert did not turn. "So," he said, voice thick. "Ned kept a heavier secret than my own belly." Jon approached slowly. Ghost remained at his heels, but settled on his haunches yards back, eyes reflecting the candle glow. "He thought it would keep me alive." Robert snorted, a sound half laugh, half snarl. "A pretty thought. Secrets breed blades in the dark." He filled a goblet, wine sloshing scarlet, and finally turned. His expression was weary, haunted. "Do you hate me yet?" Jon did not look away. "I don't know what I feel. You were my king, my uncle in truth if not in blood. Yet you slew my father." "I slew your father because he stole my betrothed," Robert snapped, then grimaced, punching air like a man swatting gnats. "No, I slew him because I thought love and vengeance were the same." I was wrong. He drained the goblet in 3 great swallows. Now the gods punish me with gout and ghosts. Jon reached the desk, laid a steady palm upon its worn edge. Robert, uncle, what do you want from me now? Robert's eyes glistened. Relief. Abdication of sin. But the realm wants a king. If I step aside, half the lords will stagger to stand in front of you, half will scheme behind. Let them. The words slipped out, startling even Jon. But the certainty beneath them rang true. My claim isn't only about blood, he continued. It's about justice for Lyanna, for the children lost to ransom politics and pride. I will not burn the realm, but I will not forsake it to keep anyone comfortable. Not even you. Robert laughed bitterly. Comfort? There is no comfort in that throne of knives. But there is power enough to drown entire kingdoms. If you think love will win you loyalty, you've the innocence of a squire. Jon studied him. Robert looked twice his age, face flushed from drink, but there was still iron at the core. I don't mistake love for obedience, Jon said. I intend to earn loyalty by merit. Merit? Robert echoed, eyes wet. Spoken like a Stark. He slammed the flagon down so hard wine splattered parchment. 7 hells, boy, you are Eddard's son. He'd see to that, even while hiding your hair under his damn cloak. Jon let silence breathe between them. Rain spattered the window. Thunder rolled far off like the drums of some giant hidden just beyond the hills. After a long moment, Robert exhaled, shoulders sagging. The Septi bells will ring tomorrow, he muttered. The small folk will demand answers. So will the lords. Then give them, Jon said. Proclaim the truth. Stand beside it. Robert pinched the bridge of his nose. I can name you heir if I choose, but I have sons. You have Joffrey, Jon said before he could stop himself. Bitterness seeping. Blood of Lannister, everyone whispers. They may be right. If the throne passes to a lie, rebellion will follow. Robert's fist closed around heir. Do you ask me to denounce my children? Jon's throat felt thick. I ask you to weigh the realm against the pride of one queen. For a space, only the storm answered. Robert turned back to the window, trembling just enough to betray exhaustion deeper than wine. Leave me, he whispered. Leave me to my ghosts. Jon hesitated until Sir Barristan's hand on his shoulder guided him out. The door thudded shut like a tombstone. In the corridor, Barristan regarded him with an unreadable gaze. The realm teeters. What is stone today may be smoke tomorrow. Jon managed a small nod. Then we must choose wisely. Indeed. Barristan inclined his head, respectful, then retreated down a side hall. Jon exhaled, pressing his fingertips against his eyelids. Ghost whined softly. The contact of thick fur against his thigh grounded him. Together, they moved through labyrinthine corridors, until they reached a small courtyard, where a single weirwood tree clung tenaciously to a niche of soil. Jon traced the blood-red leaves with his eyes, feeling Winterfell's godswood whisper across leagues of distance. He knelt before its white trunk. The hush of the gods answered in heartbeats. Across his consciousness drifted an image. Lyanna, hair streaming, cradling a newborn swaddled in Targaryen crimson. Tears glimmered on her cheeks, not sorrow but fierce, defiant joy. Behind her rose a tower, its stones splashed with dawnlight. Jon's breath caught. He bowed his head, though no words formed. Some prayers existed beyond language. Footsteps interrupted the sacred quiet. Jon rose, expecting a guard, but it was Samwell. Cheeks ruddy with exertion, hair soaked by rain. Behind him walked Miria Sand, hood streaming water, spear slung across her back. The city rumbles like a waking lion. Sam panted. Crowds chant your name, or what they think is your name. Some beg for you to take the throne at once. Others claim witchcraft. Varys says dozens of ravens flew from the Maester's tower an hour past. Already, the Vale and Dorne stir. Menem Sand. Miria flicked raindrops from her lashes. And the Lannisters? Silent so far, Sam answered. Jon digested the news. Each word weighed as much as plate armor. but he felt oddly steady. "We must not rush," he said. "If wrong steps are taken now, the realm splits like a rotten log." "Cersei will not wait, you realize," Miriam murmured. "A lioness stalks when cornered." Sam shivered. "Should I prepare for flight?" Jon shook his head. "No one flees. Tomorrow we assemble the Lord Paramounts present in the city. Tyrell envoys, Martell messengers, any Stark bannermen arrived with cargo ships. Robert will preside. The truth must be heard in council before swords unsheathed." Miria's gaze lingered on him, searching for cracks in resolve. Finding none, she nodded. "Then I'll keep watch over the lioness." "Careful," Jon cautioned. "Cersei has more hidden claws than robes." "Claws are predictable," Miria said, lips curling in faint amusement. "It's complacency that kills." Rain intensified, drumming stone and leaf. Jon turned his face to the sky, letting cool water cleanse sweat and lingering ash of torches. For a heartbeat he was once more the boy who'd climbed Winterfell's ramparts in storms, letting gusts scour loneliness from his bones. Different walls now awaited him, ones forged of iron blades. Ghost lifted his head, nose twitching, then growled low. Jon followed the wolf's gaze to an archway where a half-dozen Lannister guards materialized, crimson cloaks plastered to armor, helms shaped like snarling lions. Steel glinted in their fists. The leader stepped forward. "Prince, bastard, whichever word you fancy," he called over the rain. "Our Lady demands your presence." Immediately, Jon's jaw tightened. The Queen may request, not demand. The guard sneered. "She demands." Miria's hand slid to her spear. Sam sidled behind the weirwood. Ghost's hackles rose like ivory brambles. "I will speak with Cersei," Jon said, voice calm as snowfall. "But on neutral ground, at dawn before witnesses. Now," the guard barked, "or we carry your corpse." Miria's spear butt thunked to cobble. "One corpse? You have 6 men. Let us even the count." "Ma'am?" Rain hissed upon drawn steel. The air thickened with promise of blood. Jon felt Longclaw's familiar weighties from its scabbard. Cold Valyrian ripples met silver sheets of water, forging a vision of night falling upon midnight. "Tell your lady," Jon said, voice quiet yet slicing, "that if she spills blood beneath this weirwood tonight, the gods themselves will remember, and so will her father in the west." Thunder cracked. It felt like the gods punctuating the threat. The lead guard's sneer faltered. He measured wolf and steel and spear against his half-dozen, and found the sum uncertain. With a hiss through teeth he signaled retreat. They vanished into the archway, red cloaks trailing like wounded tongues. Sam exhaled with a squeak. Was that wise? Perhaps not, Jon admitted, sliding Longclaw home. But it was necessary. Miria wiped rain from her brow. Necessity is a blade sharper than any sword. "Come. We should move before another patrol arrives." "Bayam?" They navigated torchlit passages to a modest suite offered by Sir Barristan, tucked near the Kingsguard quarters. A sign of subtle allegiance. Jon dismissed the Karstark outriders to their cots and bid Sam recount the sept scene in detail. It was overwhelming, Sam said, tugging damp sleeves. "When I finished Ned's letter, many wept. I never imagined such power in words. But then some began shouting for dragonfire against the Lannisters, others prayed for your swift ascendance, and a few raced off proclaiming the end times." "Then shall." Jon rubbed his temple. "Fear spreads quicker than truth." "Then feed them more truth," Sam suggested tentatively. "Hold audience in the square." "Speak." Miria arched a brow. "A bold plan. Invite every sneering cutpurse to mark his arrow upon your heart." Sam straightened. "Courage carries risk." Jon considered. "Not yet. First the lords, then the people. Hysteria must be tempered by structure." He turned to the window. The rain had eased to a fine mist that silvered the rooftops, leaving the black water reflecting ghostly lanterns like floating embers. Far below, torches traveled the streets. Patrols double in size tonight, no doubt. Small folk songs drifted on damp air, phraseless but charged. Jon slept little. Dreams flickered. A boy chasing red leaves along a frozen lake, Lyanna in birthing pain, dragons circling a tower that bled light, a crown melting, reshaped into a smith's hammer. Each time he woke, the wolf watched him with ember eyes, silent guardian against terrors, both sleeping and waking. At dawn a great bell rang over the city. St. Demetrian's bell, not the sept's. An alarm. Jon flung open shutters. Smoke snaked from Flea Bottom. Somewhere in the Warrens, fire raged. Miria burst in, armor half buckled. "Riots," she reported. "Word spread that the crown is forfeit. But rumors twist. Some say you'll burn the city." Jon's gut clenched. "Gather the household knights. We ride for Flea Bottom. Put out fires, protect the innocent." Sam paled. "You'll plunge into chaos?" "I won't let chaos claim them in my name," Jon replied, belting Longclaw. Within minutes, they galloped through the Gate of the Gods. The same gate that had opened to him as scout, now parting for a prince with crimson smoke staining dawn behind him. The riot roared like a wounded beast. Shanties burned, straw roofs collapsing. People jostled, screaming accusations at shadows. Amid the turmoil, gold cloaks struggled to break skirmishes, while pickpockets used the distraction to ply craft. Jon reined in near a bakery half consumed by flames. Two small children cowered against a wall, clutching each other. Without hesitation he swung down, scooped them up, shouted for a water brigade. The baker, soot-faced, recognized the direwolf and dropped to knees, weeping thanks. A stone whipped from the crowd clattered against Jon's pauldron. He whirled, spotting a gaunt man raising another rock. "Dragon!" the man shouted. "Hell torch us all." Before guards could lunge, Jon stepped forward, arms wide. "The only fire here is that which fear ignites," he called, voice ringing over shrieks. "Help me quench it," the man faltered, disarmed by defiance of expectation. Ghost growled. White fur smudged with ash, eyes bright as coals. The mob's fury shifted, uncertain now, some kneeling to grab buckets, passing them hand to hand. Miria's spear whirled, directing lines from water carts toward tindered walls. Together, they battled flame and panic, until sun climbed high. By late morning smoke thinned, revealing charred black skeletons of hovels, but far fewer corpses than fear had promised. As they doused final embers, bells tolled again, summons from the Red Keep. Jon, sweat streaking ash across his cheeks, looked to the citadel. The council. Miria touched her spear haft to his grieved shin. "Go. We'll escort." They emerged onto the Hook Road, just as a procession thundered by. Armored riders bearing stag banners, bordered by crimson lions. At their center rode Cersei in a high-walled carriage, drapes drawn. Jon glimpsed her silhouette, a still, coiled shape. Within the Red Keep's innermost audience chamber sat the lords, Renly smiling brittle, Grand Maester Pycelle wheezing, Mace Tyrell's proxy son Loras shining bright, a Martell envoy in orange silk, several Riverlands bannermen, Davos Seaworth representing Stannis, standing quietly at the back. Robert occupied the high seat but wore no crown. Instead, it lay upon a velvet cushion before him, stark as an accusation. Cersei glided in, emerald gown shimmering, golden hair impeccable. She took a place to Robert's right, eyes fixed on Jon like crossbow bolts. Robert cleared his throat. "We gather to discuss blood and truth." Silence answered. Pycelle rustled parchments. "We should verify claims with evidence," he intoned. "One letter does not unseat lineage." Jon stepped forward. "The evidence is in witnesses present." Howland Reed lives and carries memory of the Tower of Joy. Mira and Jojen Reed can attest. Willa, wet nurse of Starfall, long rumored to be my mother, will swear she never bore me. Barristan Selmy knew Rhaegar's love for Lyanna was real, and prophecy carved in Ashai's black stone foretold the dragon reborn from ice. Do you deny these pillars? Nender, Lords shifted. Mace Tyrell's jowls wobbled in confusion. Loras studied Jon with open curiosity. The Martell emissary inclined slightly, as though measuring weight of words. Cersei rose. Witnesses of convenience, all beholden to Starks or dragons. And prophecy? Shall we kneel to dreams? Jon met her stare. Denounce prophecy then, but there is still blood. A maester's scroll may prove my parentage beyond doubt. Draw my blood compared to Lyanna's remains. Gasps rippled. Exhuming a Stark princess seemed sacrilege. Yet none countered. Robert leaned forward, elbows on knees. Will that satisfy you, Cersei? Her jaw flexed. Bones can be forged as easily as letters. Not with living blood. Sam chimed. Stepping into view, chain clinking. Maester Aemon devised tests of kinship using certain reagents. Elder maesters of Old Town guard the formula. They cannot be bribed by northern or southern gold. Pycelle sputtered, affronted. A mental nonsense. Sam continued calmly. Yet results speak truer than oaths. Allow the test, my queen, and truth will bear no need of daggers. Cersei's gaze sliced Sam, but he held firm. Blue veins pulsed at her temple. Very well, she spat. Test him. But until results come, he remains a traitor under suspicion. Robert's fist struck armrest. Enough. This council will tear itself apart while the city riots. We will hold an interregnum of 10 days. No decrees, no arrests, no executions. He glared at Cersei, then at Jon. During which the maesters conduct this blood test. At its conclusion the matter is settled. By sword, or by seal. Tension cracked like thin ice. Renly raised a hand. Who governs meantime? Robert's shoulders sagged. The hand's seat is vacant. I name Ser Barristan interim regent to administer peace. Now, Cersei scoffed. An old knight. Barristan bowed slightly. Old though I am, I have served 3 kings with honor. Robert nodded. Then make it 4. Murmurs swept the chamber. Some lords nodded approval. Others frowned. But none openly defied a king's guard of unimpeachable reputation. Jon addressed the assembly. I will not hide behind walls. Any who wish to speak with me may find doors open. I will listen, as Starks listen. His gaze rested deliberately on each lord, lingering on the Martell envoy whose eyes glimmered with thawing grief. And I will not strike, unless struck. The meeting dissolved into knots of conversation. Jon turned to leave, only to feel a tug at his cloak. Davos Seaworth looked up, earnest. My Lord Prince, your grace. Jon managed a half-smile. Jon will do. Davos inclined head. My Lord Stannis plots in Dragonstone, brooding on law. He'll weigh this claim with iron scales. Jon's interest sharpened. Will he bend? Davos grimaced. Stannis bends to nothing but proof. Bring him that he might serve or challenge. Thank you, Jon said, meaning it. As he crossed the threshold, a whisper curled from behind a curtain. A dragon and a wolf. Lovely beasts, but both hunted. Jon paused, recognizing Varys' velvet tone, but the spider remained hidden. Jon walked on. Out in the courtyard sunlight pierced clouds, scattering gold upon puddles. The air smelled of wet stone and charred wood. Myrria awaited, posture easy yet eyes scanning parapets. Ghost bounded to meet Jon, pressing muzzle into his hand. In the wolf's silent greeting Jon found a steadying anchor. 10 days, Myrria said. A short eternity. Jon nodded. We need allies, evidence and calm. And we need to keep Cersei from acting first. Myrria's smile flashed dangerous. I shall shadow the lions. They hunt best in packs. I'll scatter them. Jon let the moment stretch, then placed a hand on her shoulder. Careful. I can't rule a realm if my friends die for me. She tilted her head, expression unreadable. A prince who prefers friends alive. Refreshing. They parted. Sam hurried after Jon, parchment in hand. Maester Pycelle grudgingly supplied a raven for Old Town, he said. Results may take longer than 10 days. Jon frowned. Then we ride to Old Town ourselves. Dragonstone is nearer. Sam argued. Stannis Maester may perform the test faster. Jon considered. We split. I send Myria to Old Town with a sample of my blood. I ride to Dragonstone with another. 2 results, less doubt. Sam swallowed. Traveling so soon after riots. I will ride under stark colors, Jon said. The people trust direwolves more than dragons for now. That night Jon drew a dagger over his palm beneath the weirwood, letting crimson beads drip into crystal vials. Sam guided the process with trembling yet precise hands. Ghost stood sentinel. Red leaves whispered overhead like distant applause or warning. Myria accepted one vial, sealed with wax, bearing a dragon wolf sigil newly sketched by Jon. I relish a good gallop, she said, fastening it inside a leather tube. And Old Town holds fewer lion pits. Jon clasped her forearm. Ride swift. At dawn he, Sam, Ghost, and a small troop of Northmen loyal to House Mormont boarded a swift galley bound for Dragonstone. The Blackwater's mouth glimmered steel gray, waves lapping hulls with hungry whispers. As sails bloomed and the city receded, Jon leaned on the rail, wind salt stinging his eyes. King's Landing looked fragile from the water, towers like brittle candles against storm clouds gathering anew. Somewhere behind those walls, Cersei would already be moving pieces, Robert drowning remorse, Renly courting alliances, Varys humming secrets across cobweb strands. 10 days, Jon thought. 10 days to tilt history. Ghost padded beside him, white fur ruffling in sea breeze. The wolf's golden eyes held calm older than empires. Jon placed a hand between those ears and breathed. The deck creaked. Ropes thrummed. Gulls cried overhead. He remembered Winterfell hearthfires, Arya's laughter, Robb's teasing bets about swordplay, Bran dangling from towers. He remembered Ned's steady gaze the night Jon rode for the Wall. How it had conveyed love and burden without words. That gaze now fueled him, a lantern inside storm. Sam emerged from below deck, clutching charts. Fair winds, Jon, he said. We should reach Dragonstone in 2 days. Jon nodded. Then let's hope the truths we carry cut clearer than any blade. He faced the horizon. Beyond lay a fortress of black stone carved by dragons, a stubborn brother of a king, and perhaps the first verdict in this trial of blood. He did not know if he would return to King's Landing crowned or condemned, but he knew one certainty whispered by wind and wolf alike. The Game of Thrones had changed players, and the board itself now smoldered under dragonfire tempered by winter's chill. The galley surged forward. Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, breathed deep as sea spray kissed his cheeks. Somewhere in that mingling of salt and cold, he felt the promise of a realm, neither bent nor burned, but forged anew. Ah, Ka. The sea's voice rose through the planking like a choir of drums, each wave thunking the hull until the wood seemed to breathe. Jon stood at the prow of the galley Frostmaiden, shoulders buffeted by wind that smelled of brine and distance. Gray-green combers rolled under a churning sky the color of a raven's wing, while gulls wheeled overhead, their cries carrying a bleak music that belonged only to waters between storms. The Blackwater Bay narrowed behind them to a dark thread. Ahead, the narrow sea heaved in restless promise. Every mile of froth carried him farther from the king he had unseated, and closer to a fiery citadel that might yet reject him. Samwell Tarly shuffled forward, thick wool cloak plastered to his broad frame, spectacles fogged with salt. He clutched a leather-wrapped satchel that contained Joan's blood vial, swaddled in lamb's wool, stoppered with wax, sealed again by a fresh band of lead that Sam himself had etched with direwolf and dragon entwined. He kept checking it every hour as if it were a slumbering babe that might waken at the roll of the ship. "You'll wear a groove in that satchel," Jon said, pitching his voice above the wind. Sam blinked seawater from his lashes. "If it falls and breaks, I should sooner drown myself than face you." His cheeks colored as soon as he said it, then paled when the galley lurched on a larger wave. "It won't fall," Jon assured him, planting a steadying hand on Sam's shoulder. "This ship's captain claims his deck has never seen a dropped bottle of Arbor Gold. Your burden weighs less." Sam attempted a laugh. It came out like a squeak. "Arbor Gold is corked, not sealed with a princess's life. Jon let the spray dampen his hair. He thought of Lyanna's face, how it had flickered in his dreams as a woman of 19, then a child racing horses, then fading to blood-smudged stone. Her life weighed upon him more than any crown. Each jolt of the timbers seemed to knock abstractions aside until only the blunt iron of his mission remained. Truth by blood, proof for lords, justice for ghosts. Bear Island men paced the deck. Sparse, rangy figures in boiled leather, bearing the Ursine sigil that roared on green banners whipping in the gale. Lady Maege Mormont herself had not come, but her nephew Harold led 5 of her best trappers turned shield brothers. They set about tasks unbidden, tightening lines, shifting kegs, checking crossbows lashed under the gunwale. Jon felt solid simply by watching them, as though the North had extended claws of stone to grip his resolve. Ghost prowled the foredeck, tail lashing, every so often lifting his snout to test the wind. The direwolf disliked ships. He had bristled when the planks first vibrated with tide, but now seemed to accept the vessel as movable ground. Sailors gave him broad berth, muttering charms against sea wolves, but he ignored them, eyes fixed on the horizon. By dusk the island of Driftmark ghosted by on their larboard side. A low smear of dunes and limestone, castles mere shadows, beacon lights smoldering like distant embers. Sam identified Spicetown's harbor lights by name. Jon listened half-attentive, far more interested in the deeper gloom beyond. Somewhere beyond those shoals lay Blackwater Russian warships that served King Robert. Would they still serve him? The breeze shifted, colder, lathering whitecaps. Captain Yerrick, spindle-thin and forever chewing a clove-scented root, approached Jon with oilskin chart unfurled. "Nor'easter brewing," he warned. "Could skirt west round Sharp Point or cut straight. Straight means 2 days. Sharp means 3, maybe 4. But less thrash." Jon scanned the penciled lines, though reading charts at night proved near impossible. "Which would you choose if a tempest threatened and Lannister galleys patrolled the coast?" "Sharp, m'lord," Yerrick answered without pause. "But if speed be queen, straight's the only mistress." Jon's eyes drifted down the pitch-black corridor of sea ahead. The throne will not wait on comfort. "Hold to the straight." Yerrick gave a curt nod, rolled the chart, vanished aft, shouting new orders. Sails creaked as men adjusted sheets, driving the Frost Maiden deeper into rising swells. Night fell thick and wild. Clouds consumed the moon. Lanterns lashed to mast rings swayed, casting quicksilver gleams on wet wood. Jon took the second watch on instinct. Sleep seemed a stranger these last days, and he preferred to stand sentinel in case any ship rode their wake. None did, yet shapes rose out of waves. Imagined masts, leviathan fins, that vanished when blinking. The sea played cruel jests on eyes. Near midnight Sam joined him again, unable to rest. They leaned on the rail in stiff silence until Sam finally spoke. "The Maester at Dragonstone. Cresson. He's old. Set in ways, but honest." "Honesty is rare treasure," Jon said. Sam looked at him sideways. "You may need more than honesty. Stannis Baratheon respects law above affection. ... If the test proves you, he may kneel, yes. But if it raises the faintest doubt, he'll stand on his own claim. And there are whispers. An off? R'r'lor, a red priestess who arrived months ago. Some say she's turned Stannis' mind toward prophecy." Jon recalled stories exchanged around Winterfell hearths. Eastern priests who preached a Lord of Light and burned unbelievers. He felt a stir of unease. If prophecy moves him, truth might still sway. Prophecy speaks of a dragon reborn. Sam pushed spectacles up the bridge of his nose. A prince who was promised. Azor Ahai. The Red Priests believe he wields a flaming sword to drive back the darkness. Jon snorted softly. "Flaming sword or no, I still wield Longclaw." "Longclaw is cold," Sam said. "But truth burns." Their small laughter broke tension. The deck trembled. Wind howled through rigging with the cry of hunting banshees. Rain came. Slate needles on canvas, drumming drums. Yarick bellowed commands. Jon grabbed Sam's arm and guided him below just as a wave reared tall as a tower and crashed over the bow, smashing across the deck in frothing roar. Jon remained topside long enough to confirm no man washed away, then descended into the dark hold where casks thudded in their nets and the bilge gurgled like a throat. He sank to a bench, dripping, Ghost shaking water beside him in a spray. Sam huddled, hugging the satchel to his stomach. Thunder cracked overhead. Ship shivered. Hours passed in groans and curses and prayers. Jon slumped on the planks, head leaning against a bulkhead, half dreaming between rolling jolts. He saw again the throne room, heard Robert's knees strike stone, felt Cersei's stare like daggers in his back. He dreamed of white ash raining over King's Landing, each flake etched with Lyanna's face, melting when it touched his skin. The storm broke at dawn. Clouds tore open to reveal hard light brimming across a metal sea. The galley limped forward, sails ragged but whole, masts intact. Sailors cheered. Jon climbed to the deck, joints aching. Ahead, hazed by mist, Dragonstone loomed, a jagged titan of basalt rising straight from the surf, its towers carved into snarling dragons whose necks craned toward eternity. Even from miles distant, Jon felt its age, a weight older than Westeros itself. Ghost growled low, whether in warning or simple awe. Jon scratched between his ears. Home of dragons, old boy. Let's hope they remember kin. Captain Yarick navigated treacherous rocks with the surety of a man born to these grim waters. Stone spires slid by like silent jurors. Spray burst against black cliffs, staining them white. They dropped anchor in the sheltered cove beneath the castle's eastern wall. A narrow stair of weather-worn stone climbed dizzyingly to the gatehouse. Jon disembarked first, flanked by Harold Mormont and 2 islanders. Sam came next, clutching the satchel. Ghost bounded ashore with a shake. A trio of Baratheon guards awaited on the pier, sigils half hidden beneath oilskins, halberds upright. Their commander wore a breastplate emblazoned with Stannis' fiery heartstag, a symbol new since the rebellion. State your purpose, the commander barked in clipped tones. Jon stepped forward. Jon Snow of Winterfell, bearing urgent word for Lord Stannis. Lord Stannis is His Grace the King, the man corrected. Jon held his gaze. The realm may contest that title soon. That is why I come. Ben now. Something in his voice, or perhaps the silent menace of the direwolf, made the commander's jaw tighten. He jerked his head. You will be escorted to the stone drum. Weapons will be peacebound. Jon unbuckled Longclaw, presenting it pommel first. Treat it well. I should sooner treat my queen's lapdog, the man muttered, but took the sword carefully. Ghost bared teeth. The commander flinched, then led the party up the slick stairs. The climb was brutal, wind-driven spray turning stone steps into slippery death. Sam wheezed but persisted. Harold marched as though born of cliffs. At last they reached the gatehouse, passing under jaws of a colossal dragon carved into the arch, fangs dripping imaginary fire. Within, tunnels burrowed through basalt like black intestines, torchlit and damp. They emerged into a courtyard ringed by squat towers shaped as scaled beasts. Rainwater glinted in obsidian channels, etched with draconic motifs. A pair of guards parted to reveal Sir Davos Seaworth, rushing forward, cloak snapping. His weathered face broke into something like relief when he spotted Jon. My Lord Snow, Davos greeted, giving a quick nod. His Grace awaits in the chamber of the painted table. This way. Jon gave Sam an encouraging glance. They followed Davos past braziers whose smoke spiraled into the gray sky. Davos leaned close enough for only Jon to hear. Trouble stirs. The Red Woman predicted a visitor, carrying winter and flame. That must be you. Let's pray she welcomes it. The chamber door loomed ahead, weathered oak carved with sigils of houses long extinguished. Inside, a single great table dominated the room, carved in the shape of Westeros, painted with bays and forests, towns and roads. Candles ringed its edges, casting ponds of light across seas of pigment. Standing at the northern end of the map, gaunt hands planted on the wood, was Stannis Baratheon. Beside him stood Melisandre, tall, red hair cascading, eyes aglow as though some inner furnace fed their hue. Stannis' gaze cut to Jon immediately, dark as an overcast dawn. So the wolf boy arrives. Jon inclined his head. "Jon Snow, Lord, your grace." The phrase felt like sand in his mouth, yet courtesy mattered. Stannis did not smile. "You bring claims that unseat my brother and cast the succession to chaos." "I bring evidence," Jon said. "A maester's test awaits." Stannis waved a dismissive hand. "Maester's baubles. Baratheon blood flows pure from Orys, and none contested Robert when he won the crown. But prophecy," his eyes flicked toward Melisandre. "Prophecy speaks of a reborn king from dragon's lineage." Melisandre's lips curved. "The one with the song of ice and fire in his veins." She stepped closer, studying Jon with luminous eyes. For a heartbeat, he felt as naked as the day of his birth, memories stripped away to raw marrow. He braced himself. She inhaled, as if tasting something unseen. "You have fire, yes, but also frost clinging like armor. A strange union. The Lord of Light favors you." Stannis' jaw tightened further. "Favor is not succession. The realm needs order." "Order built on truth," Jon countered. "I seek proof, not assumption. We ask your maester to test blood." "Mensur." Maester Cresson shuffled forward, ancient and stooped, eyes roomy but sharp. "I have heard of such tinctures. A rare procedure, yet possible." "Then do it," Stannis commanded. Jon unstrapped his gauntlet, offered his palm. Cresson produced a silver lancet, hands trembling only slightly. He pricked Yon's flesh. Blood welled glossy scarlet. He caught a drop in a crystal shard, mixed with clear reagent in a small glass bowl. Delicately he withdrew a sealed vial from a leather box. "This contains a relic sample, gathered after Princess Lyanna's passing." He added a tiny droplet to the same bowl, muttering. The liquid swirled, hues clouding together. Melisandre stepped nearer, eyes alight. Ghosts snarled faintly but stilled at Jon's calming touch. Cresson stirred thrice with glass rod, then held it under candle flame. The mixture shifted from purple to silver, then settled to luminous crimson shot with threads of frost-like white. Cresson gasped softly. "The match is nearly perfect," he whispered. "A rare reaction, blood siblings or parent-child. This proves near kinship between sample and our prince." Stannis' expression barely changed, but Davos exhaled loudly. Melisandre closed her eyes, murmuring a Valyrian phrase that pulsed like embers. When she opened them, the pupils were dilated, reflecting flame. "This is no accident," she said. "Azor Ahai returns." Jon ignored the title, focused on Stannis. "Will you support my claim?" The would-be king stared down at the painted table, fingers digging into the Stormland's coast. "Law says eldest Baratheon inherits. But if that inheritance rests upon a falsehood, the law bends." His gaze rose. "Yet I will not kneel from sentiment. I kneel to the realm's salvation." Davos cleared his throat. "Your grace, my lords. The realm burns with rumor already. King's Landing teeters. A united front now might spare war." Stannis shifted, then gave a sudden nod. "Very well. I will sail with you to King's Landing. I will present this result before the small council. Should Robert yield, I will pledge sword and fleet to Prince Jon. If he refuses, I withhold judgment until Council of Nobles." Jon met his eyes. "A fair path." Melisandre's voice slipped between them. "But remember the darkness beyond politics. In the flames I saw shadows devour towers. The night is long." Jon swallowed. "Night gathers as the Night's Watch oath begins. I know darkness." She smiled, lips parting just enough to reveal the suggestion of teeth. "Then we are allies beneath the light." Within hours ravens winged from Dragonstone. Messages to Old Town, Storm's End, and even Sunspear. Jon watched them vanish like charcoal flecks against brightening sky, each feather bearing weight of shifting ages. Preparations commenced. The war galley Fury and 5 smaller escort cogs would sail by dawn 2 days hence. Stannis insisted on drilling his men that very afternoon, weathered garrons on courtyard paving, sparring to the drumbeat of his relentless commands. Jon observed, noting the precision of Baratheon discipline compared to Robert's more boisterous retinue. Sam, meanwhile, cloistered with Cresson, copying regent formulae, double-checking vials, penning certification letters. Ghost prowled ramparts, white sentinel above black stone. On the second night, he issued a sudden bark that jolted Jon from half-sleep. Jon rushed to the parapet and spotted torchlights flickering along the causeway that linked Dragonstone to the mainland. A single rider racing across, cloak snapping. Guards shouted challenge. The rider slowed not until inside the gate, then dismounted. Jon hurried below. It was Miria Sand, cheeks flushed from salt-lashed wind, eyes flashing fever-bright. She thrust a sealed scroll into Jon's hand before even removing gauntlets. "Old Town results," she rasped. "I rode 3 horses half to death." Jon broke the wax. The letter bore Archmaester Peristan's mark. He scanned, heart thundering. The Old Town test matched Cresson's with extraordinary probability. Proof from both ends of the realm. Stannis arrived, candle sputtering in his fist. He read the scroll, grunted. Doubt shrinks. But Miria was not done. "Ravens passed me along the Roserad," she said. Cersei moved. "Last night she seized the royal mint and the granaries. The gold cloaks now swear to the queen. Robert is confined to chambers, for his health. The city smolders." Jon felt blood drain from his face. 10 days. The queen had not waited even 3. "We sail at once." "Wind is unfavorable," Stannis warned. "Then oars will do," Jon countered. Davos stepped forward. "Fury's rowers are fresh and tide turns within 2 hours. We can reach Blackwater at dawn of the 2nd day." "Do it," Stannis commanded. Men scattered. Bells clanged. Sailors roused from hammocks, hurried to provision. Jon pulled Miria aside. "You rode far beyond duty." She shrugged, wincing as stiff muscles protested. "Duty is breath, and I prefer living realms to burning ones." He clasped her forearm. "Rest now. We have more storms ahead." The galley squadron departed under sliver moonlight, lanterns hooded. Blackwater Bay shimmered distant. Lightning flickered over its mouth, though the breeze lay still. Oars rose and fell in grim rhythm. "Baby!" Splashes echoing like heartbeats. Sam slumped against the mast, cheek sallow, but eyes fierce with conviction. Harold Mormont oversaw crossbow stations. Stannis stood near prow, cloak snapping, gaze fixed on the dark horizon as if sheer will might shape it. Melisandre remained below, tending a brazier whose coals glowed unnatural crimson. She hummed low chants. The air in the hold smelled of cinnamon and smoke. Jon felt uneasy yet could not deny the warmth drawn up through planks, easing cold from his bones. On the second dawn, city walls rose ahead, shrouded by sea mist, towers, dim silhouettes. But even at this distance, Jon saw smoke rising from the Gate of the Gods. Flames licked rooftops in Flea Bottom anew. Figures swarmed the battlements. Gold cloaks, yes, but also small folk bearing pikes and torches. Fury's keel cut waves entering the estuary. Trumpets blared somewhere far inside the city. A flight of quarrels hissed from the north quay, splashing short of the fleet. Warning, not war yet. Jon grasped the rail. Davos shouted up the rigging. "Raise white flag." A pale banner unfurled from Fury's masthead. Snapping crisp. Another volley of quarrels answered. Closer, one thudding into Fury's forecastle. Harold cursed. Stannis glanced to Jon. "Cersei seeks to bar entry. We need allies on those walls," Jon replied. Melisandre emerged onto the deck, hair streaming like living flame. She lifted both arms to the sky and began to chant. The wind rose instantly, staggering sailors. Sails filled though no breeze had touched them seconds prior. The fleet surged forward, outrunning quarrel range. Jon's eyes widened. Stannis tightened but he said nothing. They docked at the King's Gate quay while small folk scattered like startled birds. Ghost leapt ashore first, fur bristling, a white phantom bounding through alleys. Jon, Stannis, Davos, Sam, Myria, and 30 Baratheon knights disembarked. Harold Mormont led 10 bowmen up the pier. Shields raised. "Secure the gatehouse," Stannis ordered. Gold cloaks manning the portcullis hesitated as the party approached. Their sergeant recognized Stannis. His eyes darted from the king's brother to Jon's stark visage to the direwolf stalking behind. Fear warred with orders. Before decision struck, a boy sprinted from deeper streets, bleeding from scalp, screaming, "The Queen slays anyone who speaks of the Dragon Prince." Panic rippled. The sergeant flinched. Davos stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "Open. Stand down. No blood needs spill for truth." One guard lowered spear. Another followed. The portcullis ratchet creaked. Jon exhaled. But then a thunderous roar shook the square. A cart exploded into flame near the granary. Black smoke billowed. Out of the chaos marched Ser Boros Blount with 50 men. Purple cloaks of the household guard. Swords naked. "By order of Her Grace the Queen Regent," Boros bellowed. "Arrest the traitor Jon Snow and all who aid him." Stannis stepped shoulder to shoulder with Jon. "You forget your rightful king stands here." Boros sneered. "King Robert is indisposed." Melisandre raised one hand. Flames surging from the burning cart coiled along the ground like living serpents, swirling around her ankles without burning cloth. The sight staggered several guards. 2 dropped blades. Jon drew Longclaw. "No more children's blood for politics." Boros spat, signaling charge. The clash erupted like thunder. Steel rang. Screams rose. Harold loosed arrows, felling 3 guards at first volley. Ghost lunged, hamstringing a spearman. Stannis fought grimly, parrying with practiced rage. Jon wove through, blade a silver blur, striking with the economy of the North. He felt each impact reverberate up his arms like the blows belonged to history itself. Men shouted Aegon, others cried Queen. Feet staggered on cobbles slick with oil. Sam ducked under a wine cart, clutching satchel and scrolls. Eyes wide, Myria spun her spear in lethal arcs, haft-cracking skulls, tip darting for throats. Melisandre stood unmoving, arms raised, flames orbiting like hungry hawks. None dared near her. Within minutes, the household guard broke. Boros fled limping toward the city center, 3 men clattering after him. Jon did not pursue. His side burned from a shallow cut, yet adrenaline masked pain. The smell of blood mingled with smoke, forming a metallic fog. Stannis barked orders to secure the gatehouse and send heralds north and south proclaiming arrival of rightful heirs. Guards who had surrendered were disarmed but spared. Jon knelt beside a wounded Baratheon knight, applying pressure to a leg gash until the man bit off groans. Overhead, the first tower bells rang. Not alarm this time, but a deeper peal that echoed across rooftops. The great bell of Baelor's Sept, tolling as if for funeral or coronation both. Jon rose, wiping blood from mailed fingers. "We go to the Red Keep," he told Stannis. Davos frowned. "Storm through packed streets crawling with Queen's men. We need vantage." Jon studied Blackwater Bay. "By water then." The Mudgate Canal leads under city wall near the castle docks. "We rode it on a visit as children." Stannis considered a breath. Risky, but fewer eyes. Within quarter hour, they commandeered 2 harbor skiffs. Ghost leapt into the first, Jon and Sam following. Stannis, Davos, Melisandre took second, with Mormont archers split between. Oars dipped, pushing them along trash-strewn channels under sagging boardwalks. Reek of fish and refuse churned. Rats scuttled to avoid lamp oil still burning on black water. They ducked beneath archways where lanterns bobbed dim. Each stroke echoed like whispers in crypts. Jon remembered sneaking along similar canals with Robb, daring each other to leap from boat to mossy ledge. How distant that life felt now, yet also intimately close, as if memory itself rode with them. Near the castle docks, the canal narrowed to a culvert. They disembarked, wading knee-deep to a postern-grated door. Davos produced lockpicks. Smuggler's skill unforgotten. Within minutes, the grate fell aside. They crept through dripping tunnel, climbed a spiral stair of rough-hewn stone. Torches bracketed walls above. None burned now, sign of path seldom used. At last, they emerged into a storeroom, stacked with salt fish and lamp oil amphorae. Jon eased the door. Corridor beyond was empty. Distant echo of armored boots drifted from grander hallways. They progressed, mapping memory and chance, until arrived at a servant's stair that ended behind the throne room's tapestry-hung alcove. Jon pressed ear to door. Murmurs. The throne room was occupied. Stannis whispered, "One push takes us onto the dais." Jon nodded. Davos and 2 knights positioned on Hinge's side, Melisandre behind Jon, Sam clutching satchel close. Ghost crouched. Jon counted breath. On third, he shoved the door inward. It banged wood on stone. They spilled into the hall beneath shocked gasps. Rows of nobles in somber attire filled the space. At the foot of the Iron Throne stood Cersei, clad in green velvet armor, golden hair braided tight. Beside her, crossbow strung, stood Joffrey, a sneer twisting his young face. Lannister guards lined aisles, swords glinting. Cersei's eyes flared. "Seize them!" Jon raised voice that rang against columns. "I come with proof of birthright and verdict of 2 grand maesters." He lifted scrolls high. "Let the realm decide." Gasps. Murmurs swept. Some lords strained to read seals from distance. Joffrey's lip curled. Lies. He aimed crossbow at Jon's chest. Time slowed. Ghost snarled, muscles bunching. Archers tensed bows. Melisandre lifted a hand. Flame winked into her palm, though no torch stood near. Cersei placed a hand on Joffrey's arm, but he shook it off. "I am the king," he shrieked. "I will kill all traitors." Jon met his gaze. "Then spill first blood yourself and doom your claim." The boy's finger whitened on trigger. In that breath, Sam stumbled forward, voice cracking but loud. "For the love of the 7, look first at truth." He thrust the satchel out. "If you fear words, fear is your crown." The hall hushed. Joffrey's hand trembled. Cersei saw it. Her face changed. Fury sliding to calculation. "Bring the maester's scroll." She commanded a knight. The knight hesitated but advanced. Jon surrendered the Old Town letter, watching Cersei read. Her jaw clenched. Eyes flicked to the crowd where houses Tully, Tyrell, Arryn representatives whispered excitedly. She tore the scroll in half. Gasps rose. Jon stepped forward but stopped as a dozen swords scraped free. "More lies," she declared, voice hard. "Concocted by traitors and witches." She glared at Melisandre's fiery palm. "See, demons at his side." Melisandre spoke, voice echoing unnatural. "The flames reveal your deceit, lioness." She thrust burning hand outward. The fire leapt, arcing across air to vanish before touching cloth, leaving chain of sparks that danced like falling stars. Nobles shrank back. Joffrey screeched. Fired. The bolt hissed across hall. Ghost launched. In blink, Direwolf intercepted, jaws clamping bolt midair, snapping shaft. Cersei stumbled, eyes wide. Even Lannister guards faltered at the sight. Stannis thundered, "Enough!" His voice cracked like thunder. He strode forward, unsheathing Lightbringer. No flaming sword, but gleaming bright in torchlight. "Here stands rightful heir, proven by blood and by witness of 2 maesters. Any man who denies law, this day marks himself rebel." The hall teetered. Lord Mace Tyrell exchanged looks with his son. The Martell envoy inclined head to Jon. Even Pycelle, stooped near dais, trembled uncertainly. Cersei's voice turned silk over steel. "Would you trade peace for war, Stannis? For a bastard who will burn the realm?" Stannis answered with grim smile. "The realm burns already, sister." She snarled, reached for Joffrey's shoulder to yank him behind her. But the boy broke free, raising crossbow again. "Kill them!" A quarrel of choices exploded. Jon stepped, but Harold's arrow flew first, slicing the string before the bolt could release. Joffrey yelped, weapon jerking. Chaos erupted. Some guards lunged, others hesitated. Lord Tyrell shouted for restraint. The Martell delegate cried out that Dorne stood with the Dragon Prince. Half the lords surged forward in protective confusion. Jon advanced steadily, Longclaw poised. He spoke to the hall, not just to Cersei. "The blood test stands verified. I claim no vengeance, only rightful place. Bend now and preserve your lives, your houses, and the peace of smallfolk." Then Cersei backed to throne steps, cheeks flushing mottled red. "I'll see this throne melted before giving it to a half-bred northerner." Melisandre's eyes glowed ruby. "The throne is forged of 1,000 blades. It will not melt for you." Sudden stillness dropped like a stone when Robert Baratheon hobbled into view from behind curtain, flanked by Ser Barristan and Lord Renly. He wore no crown, only plain hunting leathers. Pain lined his brow. He surveyed the hall. The swords, the torn scroll. "Is this what my love begat?" he rasped. Cersei froze. "You are unwell, my king. Return to your..." Silence. Robert's voice, though ragged, held echoes of Warhammer nights. He moved to face Jon, eyes soaked in ages of regret. "I read your father's letter at dawn. I doubted. I drank. But doubt drowned. And only truth floats." He turned to crowd. "I abdicate. From this hour, I proclaim Aegon Targaryen rightful king. Who kneels with me?" The silence shattered as Robert sank to his knees before Jon. Ser Barristan fell next, white cloak pooling. Davos dot. Ennis dot. Tyrell, after tense heartbeat, bent as well. Loras beat behind. The Martell envoy knelt gracefully. Lords followed in dominoes. Cersei shrieked, backing onto throne dais, clutching Joffrey Tuttle. "Treason, you kneel to a lie." But more swords lowered. Gold cloaks at hall doors glanced at each other, then sank to knees. Only Cersei, Joffrey, and a clutch of lion-helmed guards remained standing. Flames guttered in sconces, casting long shadows that flickered like surrendering ghosts. Jon stood, pulse hammering. Ghost padded to his side, head high, blood-flecked muzzle calm. Jon stepped toward Robert, grasped his shoulders, lifted him. "Rise, uncle." Robert's gaze gleamed wet. "Rule kinder than I did." Jon faced Cersei. "We can end this without more blood. Yield and House Lannister retains lands, titles, save only crown." Her lips peeled in hatred. "You think mercy will keep wolves from our door? I know wolves." Jon felt something inside him steel. "I am the wolf." Joffrey screamed vulgar oath, lunged with dagger. But Miria hurled her spear. Shaft pinned boy's sleeve to throne's side, steel biting wood. He shrieked again, struggling. Cersei tried to free him. Guards hesitated, faced with a tableau they had not rehearsed. Jon approached, stopping 2 steps below dais. "Your son lives. None shall harm him if you bend." Cersei's shoulders shook. A lifetime of pride warred with a moment's survival. She closed eyes, then sank slowly to knees, bowing head. Whispered words spilled. Unintelligible, perhaps curses, perhaps surrender. Noise rushed back into hall. Exhalations, swords sheathing, murmuring of hundreds. Jon felt weight heavier than mountains slide onto his spine. He looked to Robert, to Stannis, to Melisandre, whose fiery gaze measured destiny with calm hunger. Sam approached, trembling with relief, scroll clutched. "You're Jon, they will want coronation rites." "Not this hour," Jon answered, voice hoarse. "First, feed the people. Free the gates. Quell the fires." He turned, lifting voice to rafters. "Lords and ladies, ride to your districts. Bring bread, not swords. Tell them peace dawns." They scattered to obey, some joyous, some resentful, but obedient. Robert clapped Jon's shoulder once, then allowed Davos to guide him away. Stannis remained, surveying devastation with calculating eyes. Melisandre ascended 2 steps, so flame gilded her crimson gown. A new day rises. But the long night yet stretches beyond. Keep your wolf close, your fire closer. Jon regarded her warily. I will keep the realm close, and hope it warms itself. She smiled, stepping back into shadow. Ghost sat on haunches, gazing up at throne that loomed like a mountain of sorrow and triumph intertwined. Jon looked upon it too, thinking of Lyanna's love, Rhaegar's song, Ned's silent honor, Robert's shattered heart. Steel blades waited, cold yet scorching. He doubted any man could sit there unscarred. But perhaps scars were the price of hope. He turned away, descending to hall floor where Sam awaited with anxious smile. Miria retrieved her spear. Harald barked orders to clear bodies, and Stannis already drafted proclamations. Work began even before the crown touched his brow. Outside bells pealed again, this time not for fear or death, but for change as vast as tide turning stone to sand. Small folk looked up from smoldering ruins and saw banners unfurling from the Red Keep. A direwolf intertwined with a 3-headed dragon, white and red against sunrise. Murmurs of the dragon wolf spread through cracked streets like warmth through winter cloaks. And then, some cheered, some prayed, some merely watched with tired eyes, but all felt the air itself alter, as if the city finally exhaled a breath it had held since Mad King's final scream. Across those streets Jon Snow walked, cloak brushing ash, ghost pacing at heel. He carried no crown, no scepter, only parchment sealed in truth and blade sheathed in promise. Every step he took imprinted a new story upon stones already ancient with blood, and those stones whispered under boot. Winter and fire, wolf and dragon, forged not to bend or burn, but to endure. In the hush before the next bell toll, Jon paused beneath a broken archway where ivy clung stubbornly despite flames. He closed his eyes, and for one heartbeat heard Lyanna's laughter echo across the courtyard, smelled Winterfell pines on a southern breeze. He opened them to sunrise, smiled faintly, and walked on toward a kingdom just beginning to dream of something better than fear. Okay. Night yielded to the hush of dawn over a city still trembling from the weight of yesterday's upheaval. Light seeped into King's Landing cautiously, gilding the high roofs in hesitant gold, while the deeper lanes of Flea Bottom remained cloaked in violet shadow. Ash lingered in the air. Fine. Carrying the ghost smell of charred grain and pitch. But a breeze from the bay promised a slow cleansing. Jon Snow stepped through a low archway into the outer courtyard of the Red Keep, cloak brushing flagstones crusted white with salt blown inland during the night. He had not slept. There had been no hour free of crisis, no moment when some lordling's envoy or small folk riot or wounded soldier did not clamor for judgment. Yet exhaustion dulled to a far-off ache inside him. What remained was a pulse of iron resolve, beating in cadence with Ghost's sure tread beside him. Near the granary gates, a cart laden with hardtack and turnips creaked forward, escorted by 2 Mormont bowmen. Jon lifted a hand, and the driver halted. Children gathered at the alley mouth, eyes large, faces sooty. Jon took 1 round of bread, snapped it in halves, and knelt to give the pieces to the oldest urchin, who stared as though a miracle had unfolded. When the child whispered thanks, Jon felt a spasm in his chest sharper than any battlefield wound. It was awe and guilt intertwined, because such gratitude should never be wrung from the act of feeding empty bellies. "Tell your mother there is more in the square," Jon said softly. "No one leaves hungry." The boy nodded, clutching bread to his chest, and fled. Ghost watched, tail stirring dust. Jon rose, signaling the cart on. His mind ticked through lists. Grain ships due from the arbor, Tyrell provisioning promised, Dornish fruit caravan waylaid near the Boneway needing safe passage. He could practically feel the realm's arteries, roads, rivers, trade lanes, thumbing against his fingertips like a healer reading pulse. Each beat mattered now. He crossed the yard to the Tower of the Hand, still bearing scorch marks from Aerys's pyromancers decades ago got. Inside, makeshift council tables had been erected in a grand solar open to the breezes. Pine boards laid across trestles, strewn with charts, raven reports, ledger scraps. Maester Samuel Tarly bent over a parchment, lips moving as he tallied wheat reserves. Across from him, Sir Davos Seaworth held quill poised above a roster of ships pledged to the new king. Some Stormlander, a dozen Riverlander, 3 from the Shield Islands, but only cautious promises from the Reach. At the table's head sat Stannis Baratheon, gaunt features sharper than ever, eyes hooded with chronic fatigue. He looked up as Jon entered. "You left the Maester's tower before dawn," he observed. Jon shrugged off his cloak, draping it across a chair. "I needed to see the streets. A king cannot be everywhere. Then we shall build a realm where he need not run after every blaze," Jon said, taking a seat. "Report, the key." Sam pushed his spectacles up. 4 granaries remain intact, enough to feed the city a month on half rations. I've drafted requisitions to High Garden. Lord Mace signaled willingness, but he prefers formal treaty language ensuring Tyrell interests at court. Stannis snorted. "Meaning he wants his daughter queen." Jon rubbed his temples. "We'll address alliances after stability." "Davos?" The smuggler-turned-lord tapped his parchment. 15 war galleys loyal. Storm's End, Dragonstone, Tully tribute out of Seaguard. 7 more sailing from White Harbor, but Lady Manderley requests assurances that northern merchants won't be taxed heavier than Reachmen. "Reasonable," Jon conceded. "Draft a charter of equal harbor fees." Footsteps approached. Miria Sand entered, armor replaced by simple riding leathers, dark hair in a braid. She bowed, more nod than courtesy. Prince Doran's raven arrived. "Dorn recognizes your claim and offers 6,000 spears if hostilities escalate, on condition Oberyn Martell retains his seat on the small council." Davos let out a low whistle. Sam looked alarmed at the numbers. Stannis merely dipped his chin. Jon felt a spark of gratitude toward Dorn's long memory. Elias Shade, perhaps, had whispered across desert sands, "Tell Prince Doran his condition is accepted," Jon said, "and send thanks for haste." Miria slid into a seat. "Tywin Lannister?" Jon's stomach tightened. Of all matters unresolved, Tywin loomed largest. Scouts report his host still camped outside Harrenhal. No movement. Ravens show he refused audience with Cersei's messenger 2 days past. "A lion at bay," Stannis muttered. "He waits to gauge odds. He waits to strike throats," Davos countered. "If he sees weakness." Jon tapped knuckles on the tabletop. "Then we show strength without cruelty. We keep the capital fed, the laws just. We deliver fair trial for the queen and her son." Stannis raised a brow. "Trial? They seized power, murdered dissenters." "Justice, not vengeance," Jon said. "The realm must watch the process and know it is honest." Sam nodded vigorously. Miria's expression hinted at skepticism, but she said nothing. A guard entered, saluted. "Your Grace, the Lord Commander of the King's Guard, and Grand Maester Pycelle, request audience." Jon gestured consent. Sir Barristan and Pycelle shuffled in. The old maester's beard quivered. He looked as though each step cost him months. Barristan bowed. "Your Grace, the city begs direction on the Queen's confinement. She remains in Maegor's holdfast, under guard. Tempers run high among Lannister loyalists. The Kingsguard proposes a public assembly wherein you outline next steps." Jon glanced at Stannis, saw agreement. 8 midday in the throne room, he decided. Invite every major house envoy still in the capital, and open doors to a selection of small folk representatives, guildmasters, septons, healers. Let them hear what lords hear. Pycelle wheezed. "And the boy king, heir, Joffrey? Safe and unhurt." Jon answered. "He will stand beside his mother." Miria leaned forward. A proud cub before a hungry crowd. Dangerous. All the more reason to practice mercy, Jon said. He rose. I'll address them with you, Lord Commander. Preparations consumed the morning. By the time bells tolled midday, throngs filled the throne room. A sea of colors and expressions, banners drooping in heavy air. Tyrell green and golden rose, Tully's leaping trout, Erin's winged white falcon, sparse northern deerwolves representing houses Manderley, Umber, Karstark, Martell's son and spear newly arrived on orange silk. Across the aisle, Lannister crimson still clustered, though the lions looked subdued beneath gray faces. Jon entered escorted by Ser Barristan, Stannis, Davos, and Sam as acting Grand Maester-elect. Pycelle had retired to sickbed, claiming frailty. Ghost paced behind him, claws clicking softly. Murmurs rippled. Dragon Wolf, some whispered. Others bowed their heads. On the dais, the Iron Throne loomed untouched. Jon chose to stand at its foot rather than sit. To his right stood Cersei, wrists bound in silvered manacles, chin lifted high despite pallor. Joffrey beside her glared hatred, lower lip trembling, sleeves still ragged where Miria's spear had pinned him. Their chosen champion, Ser Meryn Trant, hovered close, but unarmed. Jon raised both hands. Silence dropped gradually, as candle flames hush when the draft ceases. Peoples of Westeros, he began, letting voice carry. You stand witness to a turning of an age. Blood has been spilled, but we now choose what grows from that soil. Will it be weeds of vendetta or grain that feeds all? He paused, letting eyes sweep over the crowd. I, Aegon of houses Targaryen and Stark, proclaim amnesty for every man who lays down arms and swears loyalty to the realm's peace, be he lion, wolf, or stag. No house shall be stripped of its name or lands without due hearing in open council. And no one know. A murmur of relief and intrigue moved through nobles. Jon turned toward Cersei. Here stands Cersei of House Lannister, widowed queen, accused of high treason, false imprisonment of King Robert, and suborning murder within the city. She shall be tried in 7 days, judged by a jury of lords and small folk alike. Gasps died all. The idea of commoners judging queens rattled marble columns. Cersei's eyes narrowed to dagger slits. Her son Joffrey, Jon continued, voice steady, is charged with attempted murder in this hall. Yet he is also a boy misled by fear. Until his trial he remains honored guest, not prisoner. Lesson in justice begins with mercy. Joffrey's sneer faltered. Cersei hissed under breath. The Lannister envoy, Kevan Lannister, inclined head faintly, grudging approval of fairness. Jon spoke again. The Night's Watch reports wildling raids massing north of the Wall. Winter is not simply a northern tale. It will blanket us all. As your king, I declare immediate lifting of all tolls on grain bound for the Wall, and we shall send fresh black steel, forged at Tumbleton's smithies, by month's turn. And several northerners pounded hilts on floor in applause. He ended. Let this hall be the hearth where a fractured realm gathers warmth once again. We shall not bend to vengeance nor burn in pride. When he finished, sound surged. Cheers, murmurs, the clatter of gauntlets on wood. Some Lannisters remained silent, but they did not raise arms. Jon exhaled. One battle of hearts, if not won, at least engaged without bloodshed. The days that followed blurred into relentless labor. Jon convened small council sessions thrice daily. Dawn, midday, dusk. Positions formed quickly. Sir Davos as Master of Ships. Samwell confirmed Grand Maester by popular acclaim after Pycelle's peaceful retirement to the countryside. For health, though rumors said he feared the new broom. Miria Sand secured the post of Master of Whisperers, her network of Dornish spies already feeding valuable reports. Stannis accepted Lord Hand, a role he wielded with iron precision, though some lords muttered at power vesting in Baratheon hands. Barristan kept his white cloak, now Lord Commander of 9 remaining Kingsguard. Boros Blount and Meryn Trant stood suspended pending inquiry. Jon learned to delegate. Davos oversaw famine relief fleets. Miria unmasked a counterfeit broker ring-gouging baked loaves. Sam reformed Raven Post to speed messages. Stannis drafted new edicts emphasizing equal law. At dusk on the 5th day, Jon stood on a balcony overlooking the bay. The sun spilled molten gold across water. Galleys bobbed, sails furled, hulls reflecting crimson. Behind him, footfalls approached. He did not need to turn to know Ghost had arrived, nor to sense the quieter step accompanying. Sansa. He turned. She wore a gown of charcoal blue, stark direwolf pin at her shoulder. Eyes once filled with naive dreams now held tempered steel, yet they softened at sight of him. She curtsied, then embraced him. For an instant, the burdens evaporated, replaced by scents of Winterfell hearthsmoke and wolfskin. "You pulled a throne from fire," she whispered. "Fire still burns." She stepped back, expression solemn. "Arya rides north with Lord Glover to Marshal Mendati." Bran wrote from the wall. "He's taken vows as a watcher." Tears glimmered unshed. "He said he dreamt of you, crowned in frost and flame." A shiver traced Jon's spine. Dreams turn prophet often of late. He led her to the rail. "I need you here, Sansa. The court will listen to the Lady of Winterfell." Her lips parted. "But our home we'll keep. Robb is lord there. You are my voice amidst silk and scents." She lifted her chin. "Then I will wield it, brother. My king." On the 6th dawn, horns sounded from the western gate. House Lannister's silver trumpets announcing Lord Tywin's arrival. Jon hurried to ramparts with Stannis and Barristan. Below, in orderly columns, 3,000 Lannister men marched under crimson banners. At their head rode Tywin, golden armor bright as treacherous dawn. Expression unreadable. Jon positioned his host upon the battlements. Mormont archers, Tully spearmen, Baratheon pikemen, in studded leathers. He gave orders. "Hold but do not fire." He descended to meet Tywin in the gatehouse courtyard, flanked by Ghost and a guard of 5 mixed house knights. The Lion Lord dismounted with practiced grace, regarding Jon like a jeweler appraising flawed emerald. "So the Dragon Wolf weaves illusions into crown." "Not illusion, blood." "Blood is a tool," Tywin said quietly. "I wield tools." Jon held his gaze. "Then wield them for peace." Tywin's lips twitched. "Peace rarely fattens coffers as war. Yet war costs as well. My scouts counted Dorans crossing spears, reach harvest convoys. Your alliances blossom faster than spring weeds." He stepped closer. "Return my daughter and grandson unshamed. Restore our place on the council. In exchange, House Lannister will swear fealty and pledge half the gold of Casterly Rock to rebuild King's Landing." Stannis' brows shot up. Jon studied Tywin's eyes and saw calculation layered upon calculation. "Half the gold now," Jon countered. "And the other half dispersed as low-interest loans to small folk whose homes burned. Joffrey shall serve 2 years as page to Lord Manderley at White Harbor, learning humility. Cersei's trial proceeds. If found guilty, she may live under holy vows at the Great Sept. Lands and jewelry surrendered, but life spared." "Bedin," Tywin considered. "Long Wang." Ghost rumbled low. Lannister guards shifted hands on sword hilts. At last Tywin inclined his head a single inch. "Agreed." Steel tension snapped like drawn bow released. Jon extended a hand. Tywin clasped briefly, grip hard as iron. When he withdrew, his palm was faintly red where Jon's ring had pressed. The lion bled, if only a droplet. That night, ravens flew again. To White Harbor, to Sunspear, to the Eyrie. Word of Tywin's capitulation rippled across the realm faster than spring thaw. Markets reopened fully. Bakers slashed prices. Small folk dared laughter in taverns. In Flea Bottom, a street bard sang of the Dragon Wolf King who fed orphans and tamed lions. Coin clinked in his cup until it overflowed. But peace sowed other seeds as well. Further north, beyond the night fort, scouts sighted pale figures walking through trees, ice swords glowing faintly. Maester Aemon's raven reached Sam. Darkness in the woods. We need fire. Jon read the message at midnight, heart knotting. He stood before the window, staring north, though stone walls blocked the view. Stannis entered unannounced, candle in hand. Bad news never sleeps. Jon handed him the parchment. Stannis read, jaw setting. I offered the watch Garons, but they need more. Will you ride? I must, soon. Jon admitted. But first, I must secure the throne's legs. Then we do so swiftly, Stannis said, and his voice carried quiet solidarity. The seventh day dawned bright, clear, almost mocking the notion of winter. In the great sept of Baelor, benches filled with lords, small folk, and silent sisters. Cersei Lannister stood before a circle of arbitrators. Kevan Lannister, Olenna Tyrell, Doran's envoy Sir Manwëdy, Samwell representing the Citadel, Haber Redwine for Merchants' Guild, Septa Lemore for Faith, and Corin Pike of the Night's Watch sworn brothers. A balanced panel, each with sworn oaths to unbiased judgment. Evidence was laid. Robert's confessions, Pycelle's records of forced sedations, testimony of guards tortured for dissent. Cersei defended with fierce eloquence, claiming she sought to protect realm from dragon tyrant. She invoked children, chaos, wildfire. But cross-examination by Sam exposed contradictions, and Davos produced ledgers showing bribes to gold cloaks on the day of Jon's arrival. The verdict took hours. At dusk, the arbitrators delivered. Guilty of treason, but spared execution. She would live cloistered in the mother house on Maiden's Isle, properties forfeited to crown. Joffrey removed to White Harbor as page. Myrcella, sweet and blameless, to foster at Sunspear per prior betrothal. Tommen to Old Town under tutelage of Archmaester Peristan. Jon read judgment aloud. Cersei's face remained marble until mention of Myrcella. Then cracks showed, tears brimming though she blinked them away. She offered no final speech, only turned away, chains rattling softly. The city exhaled. Some cheered mercy, others grumbled. But bloodlust subsided. That night, after torches guttered and council dismissed, Jon climbed the tower of the king's pyromancer, abandoned since Aerys' reign, but affording unbroken view north. Ghost padded at his side. The stars burned crisp, thousands of icy pinpricks. Somewhere up there, ancient stories of direwolves and dragons twined. He heard footsteps. Miria emerged, bearing wineskin and 2 wooden cups. Your foes fear poison, she said, pouring. But Sand prefers clarity. Jon accepted the cup. The wine was Dornish red. Sweet heat. They drank in silence a while. Wind tugged hair, flapped cloak edges. Peace secured for now, Miria said quietly. For now, Jon echoed. But bigger wars loom. She glanced at him sidelong. Not Tywin. Not Cersei. No, Jon whispered, thinking of Aemon's raven. Night itself. They watched stars shimmer. Miria's voice softened. Dorne stands with you. You will not face dark alone. Benderwine. Jon turned. Candlelight from a distant window painted her profile in warm gold. Neither will you. A moment hung, suspended between breath and heartbeat. Then she looked away, poured more wine. Spring's first rains arrived days later, beating the city clean. Streets shone like polished jet. Saplings newly planted in the square unfurled bright leaves. Jon rode through puddles to the forge district where blacksmiths shaped spearheads from Tywin's donated gold. Coating them in dragonglass shards, Sam had sourced from old Valyrian hoard beneath Dragonstone. Workers bowed as he passed. He dismounted to lift a finished spear, feeling its balance. It would pierce others, Sam assured, and the watch would receive 500 by month's end. Sansa met him on the steps of the Tower of the Hand that evening, face flushed with triumph. Look, she said, handing him a parchment. Correspondence from Lady Olenna. Tyrells agreed to sponsor orphanages inside city walls, staffed by Sisters of the Faith. Food, healing, schooling. Jon smiled. True rule lay in such modest victories. They dined in the solar. Jon, Sansa, Sam, Davos, Myria, Stannis, and Sir Barristan. No silver goblets, only pewter. Bread, fish stew, arbor wine watered half. They spoke of roads to be paved, villages needing new wells, Blackfire pretender rumors and lies. Laughter arose when Davos recounted smuggling kittens for his children. Even Stannis' stern mouth twitched. Later, Jon walked the godswood transplanted to a courtyard. A single weirwood sapling from Winterfell now rooted in southern soil. He knelt, touched bark white as snow, and closed eyes. Images flashed. Bran perched atop windswept wall, ravens swirling, Arya dancing among Braavosi canals with needle gleaming, Robb forging treaties while gray wind howled by moonlight. He whispered, thanks to Ned's memory, to Lyanna he'd never known, to Rhaegar whose songs still haunted halls. When he opened eyes, Ghost stood opposite him beyond the leaves, hackles raised not in threat but in warning. A chill stole over Jon's spine despite warmth of southern night. He followed the wolf's gaze upward and saw a single star pulsing brighter than the others. A red star, glimmering fiercely before clouds swallowed it. Prophecy stirred. When the red star bleeds and the darkness gathers, the prince is reborn among smoke and salt. Smoke from battle, salt from the sea. Jon exhaled slowly. Not born, he murmured to the night, but forged. Weeks flowed into moonturn. Coronation Day arrived under sky of polished sapphire. Royal Avenue brimmed with banners, incense drifted, trumpets called. Jon donned ceremonial armor forged of dark steel etched with runes, resembling interlocking direwolf and dragon. Sam's design inspired by old Valyrian sigils. Sansa adjusted the collar, smiling through tears. In Baelor's Septon Eglantine anointed his brow with scented oil, cedar and rosemary. Jon smelled Winterfell forests. Stannis presented sword Lightbringer, flames dancing along edge by Melisandre's whispered art. Barristan reversed it, hilt out. Jon knelt, accepting but not yet drawing. Instead he turned to the crowd, mixed throng of silk and sackcloth, and gave vow. Rule with justice, hear the humble, protect realm from shadow and storm. The crown awaited, not Robert's stag, nor Aerys' spiked circlet. Sam had commissioned silver band worked with twisting black iron representing both dragon tails and the silent branches of weirwood. It gleamed understated yet resolute as it settled upon his dark curls. Bells pealed, the crowd thundered acclaim. Aegon, Aegon, Jon of the North, Dragon Wolf. In that roar Jon felt weight not crushing but steadying, as though millions of hands now helped bear it. He rose, lifted Lightbringer. Melisandre's enchantment flared, blade searing bright for one breath, then dimmed to ordinary polished steel. A hush fell. It was enough wonder to inspire, yet modest enough not to terrify. After ceremony he walked the processional route, flanked by Ghost, scattering silver stags for children. Faces glowed, old men weeping, mothers hugging babies, smiths doffing caps. Peace still sprouted tentative, but roots had found purchase. 2 nights later, a lone rider galloped through Mudgate, bearing Night's Watch black. Jon met him in Garrison Court. The ranger, ragged and frost-burned, slid from saddle and pressed scroll into the king's hands. Jon unfurled it, reading by torch. 3 words scrawled in jagged ink. The Dead March. He closed his eyes. The realm tasted hope for first time in memory. Now darkness reached greedy fingers. But he felt no despair, only the familiar pulse of duty. He turned to Stannis, to Davos, to Myria emerging with spear ready, to Sam already calculating supply lines. Ready the fleet, Jon said. We sail north. Ghost raised muzzle, howled. A stark, piercing note that soared over the rooftops, echoed by hounds, by harbor gulls, by distant wolves in pens. It felt like the cord that binds verses into song. The king strode through the torchlit yard, cloak billowing, stars glimmering shards above. Somewhere inland a newborn child cried. Somewhere across the sea dragons stirred. In forgotten crypts old kings murmured in their stone dreams. All threads converged upon the man walking now beneath both banner and burden. He felt winter's breath at his nape, tasted brine of battles yet uncharted, but flame warmed his chest and wolves guarded his flanks. The Game of Thrones had given way to war for dawn, and he, Jon Aegon Targaryen Stark, took his first step toward that far horizon, determined that neither bend nor burn would define the realm's fate, only the forging of light against the night. Mist shrouded the Blackwater like a burial cloth as the northern fleet eased from its moorings, oars dipping in ghost-silent cadence. Lanterns along the gangways had been muffled beneath blue glass to keep their glow thin and secret. Only the faintest shimmer traced hulls named for ancient heroes. Bran the Builder, Nymeria's Vow, Stormsong, Shadowcat, and at their heart the flagship Frostmaiden, her wolf and dragon pennant snapping in a wind that smelled of iron and coming snout, of iron and coming snow. Jon stood on the quarterdeck, clad in leather brigandine, the color of storm clouds. Plate pauldrons chased with modest silver. No jewels, no gilding, stark austerity tempered by the swirling dragon sigil, newly stitched across his chest. Behind him the deckhands hauled sailcloth, knuckles pale in the raw cold, yet their eyes burned bright each time they stole glances at the king. A hush lay across every man and woman aboard, the tremor of embarking upon something larger than life, larger than legend, a voyage into the half-remembered night where make-believe monsters walked on stolen skins of ice. Ghost kept low beside Jon's boots, white fur rippling in gusts. Above the direwolf, the pale crown of the half-moon opened a ragged smile through clouds, its wan light silvering the rolling flood and the great walls that retreated slowly astern. From those battlements, Sansa, Sam, and Miria pressed watchful silhouettes against crenellations. Lantern behind them. Jon raised a mailed hand in silent farewell, though he doubted they could see through the river's breath. Stannis Baratheon strode up the stern ladder, cloak flapping. "Current favors us an hour earlier than charts," he said, satisfaction wrapped in his granite voice. "We'll clear Massey's Hook before sunrise." Jon acknowledged with a nod, and then open water until Eastwatch, assuming weather holds. Stannis scanned the dark horizon where an ink-blue bruise of cloud massed. "Have you sailed winter seas?" he asked, more challenge than curiosity. Jon let the salt air stiffen his cheeks. "I've known frozen lakes that broke men thicker than you or I." Stannis almost smiled. Almost. "A lake is a cup. The sea is a god. Pray it stays sleeping." Below them, Davos Seaworth shouted orders along the forecastle. Rowers settled into their mulled wine-breathing rhythm, benches groaning. Lantern gleams touched the knight's weather-etched features, his missing fingertips wrapped in wool. He caught Jon's eye and lifted 2 fingers in encouragement. Luck, or perhaps the sign of holding fast. Other ships fell in, prow cables snapping taut like harp strings in the wind. Sea-wolves from the Mander, gull-winged cogs from Sisterton. A pair of river barges retrofitted with ballistae by Storm's End smiths. At the edges of formation glided 3 lean Dornish dromons, their curved rams trimmed with copper that glimmered green as drowned moonlight. Jon's council had argued for sending a smaller envoy. Less risk, more stealth. He had overruled them. "No stealth remains once the dead appear," he'd said. "Better arrive with strength enough that even ghosts pause." So now nearly 4,000 souls rode with him. Rowers, archers, hearth knights, rangers from Greywater Watch, the fiery warriors of the Lady Melisandre, and a wildling contingent of 60 spearwives under the rangy huntress Val. Those spearwives occupied the Wind's Answer, prow painted with stylized elk. Jon had boarded her earlier, meeting Val on the low quarterdeck, while gulls screamed overhead. "The free folk come because darkness threatens us, not because you call," she'd warned, grips of bone-handled knives jutting from her belt. He had replied, "Then we heed the same call." Now her ship rode starboard, torches shuddered but spirits bright. He heard her people singing beyond the hush, a keening cadence in the old tongue, raw and lonely as the frost fangs. Hour folded upon hour. Behind the fleet, the city's glow dwindled to a dirty ember. Southeast, clouds towered like frozen talons etched by distant lightning. But the hook itself stretched out calm and black, spray-crusted bow rails. Sailors wrapped scarves higher. Warriors found quiet pocket corners, testing cord and rivet, praying with flint and feather, whispering names of children left sleeping in tenements and holdfasts. Jon paced the deck, memorizing faces. Kennett Manderley, 9 and 10, eyes too big for helm. Harper Rivers, bastard of Maidenpool, humming chords on a threadbare harp carved from driftwood. Sisterton's Lady Sidra, gaunt from scurvy scars, but fierce as winter gull. These would be his shield against a storm of legends. With each nod or clasped wrist, he fortified himself. Near midnight, the Frost Maiden slipped past the silhouette of Griffin's Roost, its battlements jagged like broken crowns. Jon asked Davos for a spyglass. Through clear glass, he spotted lantern pairs patrolling parapets. Banners stirred, Baratheon stag, but no Lannister lion. Good. News of Tywin's pact had reached the Stormlands. Currents turned northeast, Davos said. Voice low. By morning we'll meet the shivering sea. And what greets us there? Whatever rides the wind beyond Eastwatch. They shared silent understanding. Nothing good. Davos inhaled, as though tasting brine for augury, then offered the spyglass back. Jon kept it, scanning sky. The red star that had haunted his nights no longer bled above the southern horizon. It had tracked westward, sinking into the dusk weeks ago. Yet memory of its pulse echoed now, coloring the clouds in his mind's eye. He descended to the captain's cabin when first light bled silver. Melisandre waited within, candles unlit, yet her eyes reflected flame unseen. She held a shallow bronze bowl, lined by runes. Water from the shivering sea, she said. Salt and shadow. Look. Jon leaned over the bowl. Dark liquid trembled. Pattern surfaced. Spirals of frost. Then the shape of a gate yawning under moonlight. And beyond, a figure cloaked in sable, sword blazing white like comet glass. Another figure appeared. Himself, walking toward the first. The image is blurred, water rippling. Melisandre spoke softly. Azor Ahai must face the darkness not alone, but as twin to its mirror. The flames show two blades, one of light, one of sorrow. Jon straightened. Prophecies bend like branches in wind. I trust men and spears, yet night is no man. Her voice held no admonition, only chill awe. When you stand before its void, your spear wives, your arrow lords, they will falter. Remember the light within, else all their torches fail. He met her gaze. No fire flickered in the whites, yet he felt heat, unsettling, like standing too close to forge iron. He dipped head once and left. Dawn unfurled copper and rose over gray waves. Somewhere ahead, Eastwatch's pale walls climbed the horizon, its high tower a lonely tooth of frozen stone. No smoke curled from chimneys, no gulls spiraled. A hush blanketed water so completely even the creak of oar leathers felt sacrilege. Harold Mormont, spyglass pressed to eye, muttered, "No banners, no watchfires." Jon's gut tightened. He ordered sails slackened. Ships slowed, oars drawing in soft. Gulls abruptly scattered, squawking. Then across the hush drifted a sound too thin for battle horns, like ice cracking far off, or maybe antlers rasping stone. A shape moved on Eastwatch's outer parapet. White, tall, too thin for man beneath mail. Another shape joined, and another. Glacial figures, with eyes cold, bright as winter stars. Ravens burst from arrow loops, a black geyser scattering south. But half the birds faltered as they cleared the wall, tumbling wing over wing to splash into the sea. Jon's breath caught. Frost glittered on their feathers, a death kiss of impossible chill. "Signal the fleet," he called. Archers, Dragonstone tipped first volley. Man the scorpions. The decks convulsed into motion. Rowers seized bows, knocked obsidian-tipped shafts, fitted under Sam's guidance. At the prow, barb-headed scorpions cranked, sinew cords groaning. On the wind's answer, Val's spearwives readied nets braided with dragonglass shards. A horn sounded from the wall, a drawn-out note unlike any watch call, hollow, mournful, seething with hunger. Wind shifted. Cold spilled across the water in sheets, glazing rails with hoarfrost so fast sailors cursed and slapped their reddening hands. Over that sudden chill rolled the screech of chains. Eastwatch's gate lurched open. From the shadows within poured a tide of dead men, whites in tattered blacks, wildling furs, broken armor, skin leathered and blue vein. Some crawled, trailing snapped spines, others loped at impossible speed. And among them strode white walkers, each bearing blade of pale crystal that steamed in the dawn air. Jon drew Longclaw. Frost kissed the pommel, but Valyrian steel did not frost. He felt its ancient ripples hum. "Hold until volley," he shouted. "Loose on my call." The dead reached water's edge, stumbling into surf without pause. Skiffs half-wrecked lay along the strand, and whites clambered aboard, pushing them out, but more simply marched straight into the shallows, their flesh ignoring the knives of salt. The foremost white walker raised a hand. Ice crept outward, skinning the sea in black glass beneath its boots. "Loose!" Jon roared. A cloud of arrows hissed from decks, arcs stuttering to earth at unnatural angles. Where Steen met white flesh, the bodies convulsed, fell silent. Where arrowheads found white walkers, they shattered like flint on granite. Only a few shards lodged, and in those wounds frost blossomed outward like spiderweb cracks. One walker faltered, then crumbled into shards that hissed upon hitting sea ice. The rest advanced unabated. From the storm-song scorpion came the first bolt. Dragonglass head as long as a man's thigh. Shaft of ash. It struck a walker between collar and sternum. The creature exploded in blizzard dust. Crewmen cheered, but the walker's fellows raised their blades as if in salute, and the next pulse of chill snuffed cheer from throats. "Archers to whites," Jon ordered. "Scorpions target walkers." He turned to Davos. "Ramming formation." Davos' eyes widened, but he nodded. Oars dug. Sails turned. The Frost Maiden angled toward the encroaching ice shelf. Water cracked beneath prow, but the hull's reinforced iron jaw cut through. Whites vanished under churning foam, re-emerging grasping rails before ghost arrows pinned them. Sailors pushed bodies back with both hooks, curses raw. A walker leapt, its movement too quick, a blur of winter. It landed on the Frost Maiden's forecastle, crystal sword raised. Harold Mormont met it with an axe of black steel rimmed by dragonglass teeth. Sparks of frostfire erupted. The axe blade skittered across crystal. The walker's riposte cleaved Harold's pauldron, flesh freezing before blood could flow. Harold roared defiance, ripped the dragonglass knife from belt, plunged into the walker's gut. The creature screamed, a howl like ice fracturing mountains, then burst into shards that shredded the deck planks. Harold sagged to knees, frost climbing his beard. Jon hauled him back, called for the red priests to warm the wound. On Wind's answer, Val's spearwives hurled nets over clambering whites, then set torches to tar-soaked mesh. Screams and steam rose as bound dead thrashed, unable to escape flame, dancing with dragonglass grit. But for every white ablaze, 3 more reached the hull. Stannis ordered crossfire from Port Ballistay, their bolts cutting swathes through throngs. Yet still the tide came, and now more walkers appeared upon the wall's top ridge. Dozens, the pale lords of nightmares. They lifted their hands. A low thunder moaned across waves. Jon felt it before he saw it. An upsurge beneath keel, water bulging as though beasts coiled below. Then shapes breached, dead whales stripped of eye and skin, guided by sorcery, their cavernous mouths yawning silent. They rammed the fleet's left flank. One ironclad cog split apart, deck tumbling with screaming men into black foam that crusted instantly with ice. "Signal retreat!" Davos cried. "We can't hold open water." Jon's pulse hammered, but he saw truth. Their crews would drown or freeze before reaching many walkers. They needed high ground. He seized horn from sailor and blew 3 blasts. Ships broke formation, turning south toward the crag of the wall's shadow. Only Wind's answer lingered, Val refusing yield until nets burned to ash. A walker's spear of ice punctured her starboard. Shards webbed through planks. Jon shouted across waves, voice lost to wind. Suddenly a roar cut the sky. Not wind, not surf. A roar wrought in dragonfire memory. All eyes swept upward. Through torn clouds plunged a shape immense and terrible. Scales like shadowed bronze, wings the span of merchantman yards. Drogon. Upon his back clung Daenerys Stormborn, silver hair whipping noon bright. Jon's heart clutched astonishment and fierce hope at once. Drogon banked low. The White Walkers paused, as if even death felt primal fear. A column of fire erupted from the beast's maw. Sweeping the ice shelf. Boiling sea. Whites blackened, cracked, turned to drifting ash upon steam. The dragon wheeled again. Flames licking Eastwatch's gate, sealing it in glass. Walkers lifted crystal blades, reflections of red fire dancing, clashing hues of night and day. They pointed toward Drogon, a silent command. From the dark inner yard lumbered siege scorpions, ancient machines the dead had repurposed, skulls of mammoths lashed as counterweights. Ice bolts loaded, shimmering. Daenerys shouted in a language Jon dimly recognized. Varian. Drogon climbed, banked, flames spilling along his belly. An ice bolt shot, a spear of pure frost. It clipped Drogon's left wing. Scales shattered in glittering shower, but the dragon kept aloft. Another bolt fired. Icy trajectory straight for Ryder. Time slowed. Jon's throat tore with warning though she could not hear. Drogon twisted. The bolt sheared spines along his tail, embedded through membrane. The dragon shrieked agony but steadied, landing on a cliff spur beyond ice line. Jon felt deck lurch as Frost Maiden grounded upon shallow shingle, just south of the gate. Boarding parties, he shouted. They leapt to knee-depth surf, hacking through last straggling whites. He scrambled over rockweed to the base of the cliff where Drogon crouched. The beast's flank heaved, wing trailing ragged. Daenerys slid down scorched scales, boots striking shale. She was mail-clad, cheeks smeared with soot, violet eyes fixed on Jon as if he'd haunted her dreams. No time for greetings, she said, voice hoarse yet commanding. Your kingdom called. So I answered. Jon touched her forearm, impossibly warm amid bitter air. We hold line while maesters treat your dragon. The city needs you whole. None. Her gaze flicked to Icefield where walkers regrouped. They pierced him with darkness. Only dragonfire forged anew can mend. Stannis arrived, sword filmed with hoarfrost. We can't breach their sorcery. Then melt sorcery, Daenerys replied, mounting Drogon's shoulder despite his wound. She whispered, and he lurched skyward, spraying sparks, the one wing barely thrust. Jon watched, heart wedged in iron bars of fear. Form shield wall along bluff, he ordered. Val's spearwives closed ranks, Mormont archers behind, Dornish Dramans maneuvering to fire bolts inland. On the ice, the White Walkers advanced again, slower, cautious of dragon, but relentless. They raised hands. The fallen whites twitched, stood once more though char-black, bones glowing faint blue. Jon's men muttered prayers. Melisandre emerged at Jon's side, scarlet cloak swirling. She lifted ruby pendant, chanting. Fire answered, swirling from her palms, to settle along arrowheads and spear tips, burning without consuming. She nodded to Jon. Dragonglass is the flesh. Fire, the blood. Battle rejoined. Arrows streaked. Whites fell brittle into shards. Walkers traded blows with knights whose blades flamed. Each contact birthed storms of frost and cinders, air singing with annihilation. Jon found himself dueling a walker tall as Hodor, its crystal blade whistling arcs of comet blue. Longclaw met it clang for clang. Sparks froze, fell as glittering pollen. The creature stabbed. Jon parried, riposted upward. The Valyrian edge bit through jaw to crown. Light flared. A silent explosion of frost dust, and the walker vanished. He wheeled in time to see Stannis impaled through thigh, but burying Lightbringer into another walker's sternum. Davos dragging him back, torching wound with pitch to keep flesh from freezing beyond salvage. Val darted under a dead giant's swing, slashing hamstring with dragonbone blade, leaping clear as Melisandre's firebolt reduced the creature to cinder snow. Drogon returned. With desperate roar, he bathed the battlefield in rolling fire. Sea ice cracked. Monstrous whales dissolved to steam. Walkers staggered. And amidst maelstrom Jon glimpsed shapes atop the wall. Rangers, black cloaks whipping, loosing arrows from crenels. Behind them towered a form bigger than any man. A direwolf wrought of gray stone and swirling mist. No, a weirwood spirit conjured by ancient wood prayers. Bran, he realized. Bran had sent magic of the old gods. Roots and ice intertwined. Icy tendrils snared walker legs, dragging them screaming into cracked earth that gaped like hungry maw-de. The wall itself groaned. Jon felt tremors underfoot. Blocks of ancient ice dislodged, avalanching onto the beach, burying whites in crystal catacombs. Rangers gave final horn. 3 blasts, urgent. Atop parapet, Jon saw a small figure raising hand. Perhaps Bran, perhaps some other sorcerer of the wood. And the spiritual direwolf dissolved into flurries. Stillness descended, broken only by crackle of residual flame and hiss of cooling ice. Walkers lay shattered, whites immobile in heaps. Jon staggered, lungs ragged. Around him survivors slumped. Val kneeling over fallen spearwife. Harold leaning on blood-slick axe. Stannis sitting, legs splinted, jaw clenched yet eyes fierce. Drogon collapsed near cliff base. Wing torn but no longer bleeding ice. Daenerys stroked his snout, murmuring lullabies in High Valyrian as red priests circled chanting soft fires into wound. In that hush, Jon met her gaze. Something trembled between them, recognition of entwined fates. Perhaps gratitude, perhaps deeper. But words waited. Duty remained. He turned to the field where hoarfrost melted under new sun. Eastwatch's gate still sealed in fused glass. Beyond, the wild north stretched, secrets stirring. He raised Longclaw skyward. Sunlight flashed from rippled steel. "This day we hold," he called, voice scraping hoarse but resolute. "Tomorrow we march beyond." A cheer rose, weak but determined. It rolled along cliffline, across ships anchored in fractured ice, up the wall to rangers who answered with horn echo. Jon lowered blade, breathing the sharp air of dawn after cataclysm. The worst was yet to come, he knew. Nights longer, dead smarter, a great other stirring in shadowed wastes. But for the first time he believed the realm could stand. Dragon flame, Northmen steel, priestess fire, wildling fury, and the stubborn heartbeat of men who refused to bend or burn. He looked to Daenerys, to Drogon flexing wounded wing. He looked to Stannis grim but steadfast, to Val wiping blade on snow, to Ghost prowling between corpses, eyes bright amber, and felt the weight of prophecy slide not heavier, but broader, spread across many shoulders, many hearts. The war for dawn had begun, and with it, a fragile, breathless hope that dawn might indeed arrive.